Hey everyone.
Hello, it looks like we are live. This is Calantirniel. We have Dave Woosley,
Hey.
and we're going to be doing an interview, a deep dive interview for Dave tonight. And let me go ahead and add to the live stream here. In fact, we'll put our photos underneath
Mhm.
so that like your picture is a little bigger.
Right.
And
Right.
so I wanted to get this onto the screen so that people like actually know who you are.
Right. Right. Yeah, because you're the face of TE, and they hear me in the background, but I don't think they see
Right.
me anymore.
So they get well, actually you should be the face of TE, but I
Yeah.
mean, I know how it works,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's not about what is real, it's about perception, right?
Perception, exactly. And well, like I told you last night, you being a woman, people pay more attention to women on YouTube channels than they do for dudes. Because
Like, I mean, I don't know about that.
yeah,
So, I mean, I think it just depends on the genre. And I think that because there's a lot of times in some genres that women are not taken seriously either.
oh right, right, yeah,
But I see where, like, with our topic of like
mhm,
Elven and fairy and
mhm,
da da da,
mhm,
yeah, there's
mhm,
definitely, I think, more like female emphasis. But,
right,
I think that, your point of view is, besides the fact that it's utterly unique,
mhm,
it's utterly like also the origin of this whole thing.
right,
um
right,
so and we can go all the way back, okay? And for the moment, we'll go ahead and start with at least just how Tia eldalieva formed, just for people
right,
that are
yeah,
unfamiliar with us.
right.
And we see Draco and Nimue in the house. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
And Draco goes all the way back pretty much.
Yeah,
So that's
basically all
pretty
the way
cool.
back to founding TE, pretty
Yes,
much,
it's a long time,
yeah.
and it goes all the way back. And actually, I invited Adam also
Mhm.
to
Oh,
join our
okay,
stream
interesting.
tonight, but
Right,
I'm guessing he's working. I haven't heard
right,
from him. But if
okay,
you are playing, if you're on the replay, Adam, we say howdy.
yep, alright,
And all the other folks that are that have played a role in our formation, and whether they like popped in to visit and moved on, or whether they're still here with us. We value our whole experience for the last 18 years.
yeah,
It's been
yeah,
18 years.
yeah, wow, yeah,
It's hard to believe.
yeah.
It's really hard to believe, but here we are.
It was August 23rd, 2005, wasn't it? I think it was the
Yes,
23rd, yeah, okay,
that was the birthday of our organization,
right,
but the birthday of when we met online was
was
shortly after Beltane of 2005,
yeah, it was in May, I
because it
definitely
was your
remember that.
birthday, and I
Yeah,
remember
right,
that it was your birthday on May 11th that
mhm,
year. And then I'm like, oh my God, like, so like, and then we like, after your birthday, we really got, yeah. So, and Draco says, since 2005, I used to go by the name Lome Lindo. Right,
mhm, right,
exactly. And Dorian's Lover's in the house. Hi, Christy. Yay,
hey,
cool. Yay. So we have like a couple of folks that are online, and that's awesome. So we went all the way back to 2005. And then like from my end of like how the experience went, I didn't even like, I mean, other than reading The Hobbit when I was 12, in 1976. And then just I wanted to read Lord of the Rings. I just never did. It was one of those things that it was like, oh, it's on the to-do list, but then life
mhm,
happens, and just things take
right,
over. I started studying alternate spirituality like fairly young, but then really took a deep dive after my Saturn return, when astrology happened to me, and that was my first, oh wow, like life is not how I think it is. And I had and like a very strange incident with a friend of mine who is Native American, at least half. She's Cherokee, and she has healers in her tribe. And she was telling me that her grandmother taught her how to talk to stones. And so I was wearing a malachite pendant at that time. And we had, you know, like we had a conversation about the fact that it was a malachite and it was 1993 and like nobody knew what that was, you know, back then. So I was like, how does she know what this stone is? And so she says, may I hold it? And I said, sure. And so she held it, and it was like she had it, you know, she was shaking, her eyes were rolling. She came out of it a couple of minutes later and said, never get rid of this stone. It's bringing you love, money, everything that you need. And she put it back on my chest, and it burned me. And I had to put aloe vera on my chest for 3 days. So this was very curious to me. And I'm like, how did she do that? You know what I mean? And it's like, I got to get your phone number, right? So we are still friends today. But that was my opening into like just spirituality, like alternative spirituality in general, like just like break the mold. There's a lot of things that happen in the world that you can't prove. And yet here's the evidence, like of, you know, aloe vera on my burn mark, you know, kind of thing. Then astrology came to me shortly after that. And I had studied like sun sign astrology when I was a kid, and was pretty fascinated about how, you know, like they got a lot of it right. But then I learned real astrology when I was, you know, at my Saturn return. And I learned it from an attorney who used it to win his cases, of all things. And then I didn't even know that I was going to become professional. So by the time that 2005 came, I was a professional astrologer and had been professional for about 5 years. I was definitely, you know, in the neo-pagan path, but I was exploring all the different world paths, whether it was Norse, whether it was Greek, whether it was, you know, Native American, whether it was Latin American, whether it was Mesoamerican, whether it was African American, whether it was, you know, Asian in origin. And I learned a lot of things about a lot of paths. What I also figured out was that you can't like really mix them together unless you have precedence of those things being mixed together before, so that you know what comes out of them. I've seen a lot of times where people would just, you know, oh, let's, you know, play scrambled, you know, eclectic paganism, and we'll call one god from this pantheon and a goddess from this pantheon and mash it together, and just doesn't matter. And I found that, yes, it does matter, because there's resonations that they don't understand, that they're awakening, like by contacting those pantheons, that there's, you know, like inadvertent kinds of things that can bleed over if you're not careful. But I still didn't want to commit to a pantheon. And like, so I was just like, I practiced, you know, one at a time, but like I practiced different things. So one time I would practice, like, say, a Celtic ritual, and then another time, and you know, a Hindu Indian, you know, kind of themed ritual. Another time, you know, it would be like Native American, or maybe it would be Greek, or maybe it would be Norse, or, you know, like Teutonic, or maybe it would be like even Eastern European, or like anything, right? And I was not prepared for what happened to me in May of 2005. And that was that I read the Silmarillion, my husband's crumbling copy that he had finally found. And he had told me for years, you need to read the Silmarillion. And I'm like, okay, you know, and I didn't think about it. And then he finally found his copy, and I started reading it, and it was like, oh my God. Okay. So my whole body was vibrating like, this is truth. This is truth. This is truth. This is not like fiction. This is actual, like, archetypal, like you are tapping into a really deep cosmology, one that was like forgotten, one that was, you know, really, really deep. And it's closer to anything than you have studied for your own alignment. Like, literally, that was the message that was coming through. And I'm like, this sounds crazy, but okay, I'll go with it and I'll see if it works. But I needed help. I needed help in this journey, because as much as Ray knew, I needed somebody who knew it at the spiritual level. And I found Dave through UTalk on Yahoo groups, through Martin Baker of the Alt Tolkien site. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how I found Dave. Now, that search only took me 2 weeks. Okay. Diligent search. I mean, all day long, I was looking for Dave, right? And so, Dave, you looked for me for like 30 years.
Yeah, I was looking for people who were interested in the Legendarium in a metaphysical sense versus just a linguistic or gaming type sense, because there's a lot of like role playing gamers that do Lord of the Rings based stuff, but that wasn't my interest. So
Yeah, well, and I had the same problem. The role playing games, this is 2005, you guys. I mean, It was a different world. Now there was a smaller and more underground, more subculture otherkin movement at the time. But I didn't even know about it at the time until, I had to like start the path and then learn about otherkin types of things. And then I realized, oh, they're not the same as like what we vibrate with. And let me get to the comments really quick. Dorian's Lever says, I think I have been with TE for about 10 years, roughly. That's possible. Yeah, you've been following us for a long time. And Draco says since 2005, he went by the name Lome Lindo. So, yeah. So I just wanted to catch up on the comments. So, Dave, why don't you talk about, like, I guess from the beginning of your life, maybe, and then how Tolkien shaped you in order to be looking for me for 30 years, like in order to make it an outward expression rather than an inward expression.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a family where my mother was a fairly devout Lutheran. My dad was not religious at all. He was more atheistic. So there wasn't a huge, because of that difference in between the two parents. There wasn't a big push to really get involved in religious stuff. I mean, my mom would discuss it, but there wasn't any pressure. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Sure.
So, and my dad would be at home reading hydraulic technical manuals. That was his Bible, because he was an aircraft tech.
Right.
So
it was kind of like you had a secular upbringing, like in a sense, like meaning either an atheist, agnostic, or like religion in name only or something. Not really practicing, not really. Just kind of it's there. Yeah,
because he would go to church with my mom, but it really didn't mean a lot
for social reasons.
Yeah, right.
Okay, gotcha.
And then when as I from age 3 on, because my memories go back all the way to the time I was 18 months old, where I accidentally I saw this basically picture of Kool-Aid glittering in the sunlight. Then I reached out as a little kid to pull it toward me and dumped the whole thing all over myself, which to an 18-month-old, baby basically is like, a huge flood of getting Kool-Aid poured over.
Right. Yeah.
But
and what did you think that it was? Like, I'm curious.
I was just attracted by the, I didn't know I was on the autism spectrum then. People hadn't heard of it, but
I see.
Autistic kids are attracted to light, and especially light and colors and
it looks shiny and okay, and clear and like, what's this? Okay, I can see how that would fascinate a child.
Right.
Yeah.
So but at the time I was about 3, I actually learned to read when I was 3 by having my mom read stories to me, and then all of a sudden something just clicked, and I saw the patterns of the letters on the page, and I just realized that I could read. And she was kind of shocked because I was only 3, but I and the first, being Christian, one of the first things she had, was to read the different Bible stories. And I was interested in, because even at that age, I wouldn't have been able to express it this way, but I recognized them as tribal accounts of, in this case, the Jewish people, doing different things, and King David and so forth. But I was equally interested in the Greek myths of Heracles and
Yeah.
golden-haired Achilles and so forth. There
Yeah.
wasn't much of a separation for me. It was all mythological. So, you know, and
Right.
then and so I continued on in that, and I got a nodding familiarity with the Greek mythos and pantheon. And then when I was 8 years old, um, uh, my mom took me to my sister was in a high school play of The Hobbit, and
Oh,
she hadn't heard of Tolkien before, and neither had I. And my sister was just in this because it was what the high school was doing. And I saw her in that play, and I'm like, "Mom, what's that story? Where does that come from?" I was immediately attracted to the story being told.
wow.
So she says, "Oh well, this is written by this man named JRR Tolkien. I've never heard of him." So and you got to remember, this was 1973. So,
Right.
people think, well, who everyone has heard of Tolkien. Not in those 1973.
Not
They
back
had,
then.
yeah,
No, I mean,
yeah,
and in fact, it didn't get published in America for like another decade after, it was published in England first.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Lord of the Rings, and then it still took a
Right,
decade or so. Like, I mean, so it's not the same in America as it is in the UK.
right. So
Yeah.
after reading, yeah, and she got me the book, and we both read it together. She would read part, and I would read part. And by the end of the book, I was completely fascinated. The Hobbit was my entry into Tolkien's literary works, and so and the more that at that time, neither my mom nor I had heard of the Lord of the Rings, and one of the times we picked up the book again, for I was doing a reread. And so and apparently this was after the Lord of the Rings had been published, but I had overlooked it on the previous reads. But it said, if you want to know more about hobbits, you can learn a lot more about them in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. I said, Mom, you got to got those books for me. So she did, and that was like maybe
Wow.
a
That
year
was it.
later. Yeah, maybe
That
a
was
year later when I was
it.
9. So yeah, so uh,
It started.
yeah, and the way that my orientation to metaphysics, I suppose you would say, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, is just that these tales to me are not set aside into a concept of, well, this is literature or this is religion. It's very and and I only know this now, being much older and reading how regular people do it, and how I basically process such things. But it's more the way that the native people would incorporate their tribal stories and their myths of, like, Fox the trickster and so forth. It was integrated.
Right.
It formed an integrated both spirituality and lens that I viewed the world through.
Well,
So
I wonder if that's in a way what Tolkien did as well when he was young.
probably,
Because he
yeah,
was very tapped into a lot of things and very curious about every culture, studied the heck out of it. Obviously was a linguist. I mean, probably the greatest linguist of modern times, and I just say like modern times like being the last, 500 years minimally. I
right,
mean, he is incredible.
right. Hmm.
Yeah.
And at the same time, ever since I was, around 3 or thereabouts, I probably recognized that I was a little bit different in this respect. I'm going to talk about um, probably more a little bit older. I was like maybe 5, but I realized that, and I would talk to my friends at the time about it, and they wouldn't know what I was talking about. And what I'm talking about is therianthropy, which is a Greek word from therios, meaning animal, and anthropos, meaning human. And that's a type of connection that you have to an animal spirit or part of yourself. It's not what a lot of people make a mistake and say, "Oh, you mean your totem animal?" No, it's not a totem. It's
No.
a part of yourself. And
I
there's a
tried
good,
spelling that out in the comments. I wanted to make sure I spelled it properly.
yeah,
Therianthropy, which is Therian, correct?
That's it. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah. And
excellent.
there's a good definition here, which I found on a forum. I'm gonna paste into the private chat here.
Okay, wonderful, and I'll get that. Okay,
I just pasted it.
perfect. Copy.
And this is a problem. People have since we formed TE. I mean, have made the comment sometimes. Well, this Dave Woosley, he doesn't like otherkin. This is the reason that otherkins have occasionally caused me a problem, because they have a worldview that's very hegemonist, which means that they like to incorporate anything into their own label, and therefore expand their territory, very similar to the old Soviet Union. So,
Well,
in
it's
other
kind of
words,
like Pokemon, collect them all, right?
right, yeah. And Therian is the short version of the word. We come from a very different modality, and we're not the same as otherkin, and most, especially older Therians, will tell you we don't have anything to do with them. They're what they are, and we are what we are. So
Right.
that's the
Right. Well,
source of the
it's a much older philosophy too, because I
right.
mean, you can absolutely read about shamanic accounts of, like, say for instance, Native Americans, like, blending into their animal, and the animal taking over, like, all of
Exactly.
their, like, senses, so that they then trance and go into their animal. And
Right.
it's not the same as just a totem animal. It's not the same.
Exactly.
It's
And
not the same.
mine is a is a tiger.
Right,
How
because isn't the most common one a wolf?
wolf? Yeah, wolf is common. Also bear, which is in the Hobbit.
Oh, oh,
Beorn, who is features in the
right.
Hobbit quite. He was a Baratherian. That's what he was.
Hmm.
That's his definition. You know.
Wow.
And so I've occasionally in the past gotten flack about, oh, there's nothing about therianthropy in Tolkien's works. You're full of shit. And I'm like, well, there is Beorn, Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, and that's kind of a segue in that how you fit that aspect of your life in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
you probably had like another application though when you were younger of embodying the mythos of the Legendarium, meaning JRR Tolkien's Middle Earth stories, and
Right.
into your spirituality, and that it made such an impression on you that literally, because you had a really, like, I guess, open secular background that was like not
Mhm.
really indoctrinated with
Right.
either Catholicism or science or
Right.
anything else, in a sense, like,
Right.
they just kind of allowed you to explore. And like, so you didn't really have like a religious background growing up.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they were no different than the Greek stories, or any
right,
other culture. I also
right.
read native stories from different Native American tribal people, and it was to me it was all very interesting, but I didn't like put one over the other, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, okay. At the time, yeah, because I was just thinking about how, like, here you are, taking all these stories and the Greek stories and all of that, and I
Right.
did that on my pagan study, or
Hmm.
neo-pagan or witchcraft or seeker, okay, like all of the above, druid, heathen, like, all of the paths of studying, shamanic, and I put that in quotes because I would not consider myself a shaman. It's more of a witch.
Right. Hmm.
Because I really do believe that shamans like lose themselves in the other world,
Hmm.
and they were actually considered crazy, but in order to get them to the place where they had to get the info that the tribe needed, they had to be crazy and not live in that world. Where I
Well,
believe that a witch kind of goes in between, like they do 3D, but then they go to the other world when it's
it
necessary. It's more willing, if you will.
it's it's interesting. Now, Terrence McKenna.
Terrence McKenna.
Yeah,
Okay.
he studied entheogenic shamanism, which is you enter the shamanic state through
Yeah.
the use of various medicine plants, whether it's peyote or
Well,
San Pedro
there's lots of
cactus,
different
ayahuasca,
entheogens used
whatever.
around the
Yeah,
world
yeah,
for different
yeah.
tribes and different purposes. And
I'm an
yeah,
entheogenic shaman myself. I use Salvia divinorum, which is very different. It's not like any of
yeah,
the other entheogens, but I
yeah.
think
A lot of
I
people are into the ayahuasca thing nowadays,
right.
and yeah, they get really scared of Salvia divinorum
Yeah,
because it acts completely differently, and they're
yeah.
not prepared for it. Yeah.
Yes, if one believes in the spirits of the medicine plants, and I'm one of those who do, uh,
Hmm.
the the ayahuasca collective and the salvia collective have kind of a cold war going on in the sense that the salvia people think that the ayahuasca people are mostly glitter and flash with no substance, and the ayahuasca collective thinks that the salvia people are too rule based and stuck up, but
Oh wow, wow. That almost sounds like a difference between elves and men.
yeah.
That's amazing. Does the salvia? I'm curious. This is a segue from the story of
Mm,
your spiritual path, but I think that it's important to ask you, seeing how you're talking about the salvia divinorum,
mm,
like people, meaning the collective of the
mm.
plant spirit, and that you work with that. Is there any other plants or substances or other things that they don't get along with, or that they do get along with?
Uh, none that they really don't get along with. They don't really think much of the cannabis spirit, but that's because it lies a lot.
Oh,
But
very
that's not really
interesting.
a. They
Wow.
just
How do
they
they
kind of
feel about grandfather tobacco?
tobacco. They don't have any problem with. In
They
fact,
don't have any problem with.
yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
some people. No, I'm not one of them, but some people actually mix tobacco and Salvia divinorum to basically to cut the extreme edge that salvia can
Oh,
have.
I could
So
see how that would work.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
so,
So, but those plants could get along, like,
yeah,
so that they would put it in a smoke. Like, well, so for people that are unfamiliar with Native American smoke blends, they actually use a plant that is like in the Latin family called Uva ursi. That's the species
right,
name,
yeah, mhm,
and
mhm,
they use that, and it's actually a medicine for the kidneys. Okay, actually, but because I mean you can use it for kidney infections, but the native use that in as one of their main ingredients in a mix of herbs called kinnikinnick.
exactly,
And
yeah,
so they actually even sometimes call that plant kinnikinnick, meaning like that's what they smoke, and maybe it's like a single herb at that point, but it's often a mixture, and it includes uva ursi, but it can include a lot of other things like cedar
yeah.
wood. It can include birch. I mean, like
Some of
a lot of different things.
some of the
And
some of the
go
people,
ahead.
some of the native people who do use salvia divinorum, from what now I've never actually tried it, but I've been in contact with some people that have used it. They'll mix a little bit in with the kinnikinnick if they want to get more of a if they want more information to flow in about they're looking for a lost object or a lost person or something like that.
Oh,
So,
very interesting. Because then it's kind of like calling a lot of plants to help instead of just
right,
one
right,
family.
e-
Wow, that's
exactly.
really
Yeah.
awesome. That's really awesome. For people who are interested in Native American smoke plants, meaning things that they smoked in ritual for, spiritual reasons, not to get high, not to, all of those types of things. Howie Brownstein is a wonderful herbalist who has done a lot of work in this. And one of the things that he teaches is if a Native American had taught him if a rabbit can chew it, anyone can smoke it. So
Yeah,
it's
that's a good
kind of a
rule.
good guideline about what makes a good smoke plant and what doesn't. And many times, mullein, which is the verbascum species, the one that everybody calls, toilet, white man's toilet paper or something like that. And it's like the really tall,
Yeah.
like it has
Right.
yellow flowers. And by the
Right. Right.
way, that plant is amazing as a healer as well.
Mhm.
But those plants, that makes a really good base because the little hairs like grab everything together and kind of like make it like very bundleable, so that the herbs don't just blow away. They stick together, and then they can put them inside of things for smoke mix.
Right.
And then they'll add, astringent herbs. They'll add tree barks. They'll, sometimes, put a whole bunch of like dried flowers and other things. But basically anything that a rabbit will chew is something that they could put in a smoke blend. So it's just something that I thought was very cool that I learned. And I can link later the Howie Brownstein link. I'll try to put it in the live chat.
Right.
But if not, I'll make sure I come back to this video and put it in the comments. I have the link on my timingmagic.com/resources/herbal or herbalist, something like that, herbalism maybe. I have a link for it on there too. So if you guys like want to go down, and say, oh my gosh, I got to find out about this, you can actually find it there as well.
Right. Now, just to let you know, I wasn't doing medicine herbs when I was a kid. This only
Okay.
happened. This only
This
happened
was
after,
later. Okay.
this was
Okay,
after
so
I
we're
went.
segueing back to
Yeah. This was
when you
after
were
I went.
young.
This was after I was 40 years old. I mean, my life moves slower in a lot of respects than other people's do. Like people talk about, oh, they're wild teenage years. There was no wild teenage years for
For
me. I mean,
you, because
yeah,
of your health condition and the health condition of your parents.
right,
And
yeah,
also that you moved
exactly.
away during your teenage years into a foreign
Yeah, I was in
country, of which like acting wild and crazy was not a good idea.
Costa Rica, yeah, for 5 years from the
Right.
early '80s to the mid '80s. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, your entire teenage years.
right, right.
Yeah, that's very formative. So, what would you say was the moving point between the deepening of Tolkien's Legendarium for your spiritual path versus the Greek or Native American or other like pantheons or
Well, that
any other thing that you had read?
would have been 1977 when the Silmarillion was published. And
Aha.
so that was I mean, I was primed for it by reading The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but when the Silmarillion came out, that was like getting the pure essence versus pieces of it,
Wow.
or a little glimpse here and a glimpse there, like it was in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The Silmarillion was like drinking from the pure well,
Oh my
So,
God. Okay, so I had the same experience when I first read it, but that moment for me was in 2005. So it brings me back to that time. So I can imagine that as a child, 1973, having that epiphany, wow, that must have been so powerful. Oh my goodness.
In '77, I was 12 years old, so it was like the
And
perfect
that's
time
right, 1977, right?
yeah.
Okay,
So
because
77, 12 years old is kind of, from what I've read later, is like the time when if someone's going to be spiritual, that's the time to get oriented in that direction. So it just happened. It's just something that happened.
Very interesting. And I mean, I guess 12 years old would be kind of in a way like a completion of a Jupiter cycle, because for people that don't know this, I'm an astrologer. So Jupiter goes through a sign a year, so there's 12 signs in the zodiac. So what'll happen is that when the Jupiter goes all the way around 12 years later, so at the age of 12, basically, you go through an entire Jupiter cycle, and Jupiter is a planet of expansion and knowledge, and that includes spiritual and philosophical knowledge, as well as foreign cultures and travel and all of these things that resonate with Jupiter. That's so perfect, like timing wise. Timing is just amazing.
And also, I didn't. I mentioned I I'm on the autism spectrum several times. I wasn't aware. I was aware that I was different, but not what that difference was. It took meeting the lady who is now my wife to basically diagnose me, because she was trained as an OT, occupational therapist, and they're trained to, like, in school,
Wow.
kids recognize the signs and, behavior patterns and stuff like that. So she's the one that actually
Incredible.
diagnosed. It later confirmed by a psychiatrist, but so I have a formal diagnosis, but she's the one who actually saw it first. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. And that you attracted that in your life in order to improve your quality of life. And it all happened around the same time as this path was born. Like,
yeah,
you
it's the
know,
same time
and
I
then
met
you
you.
got married, and then your
I met
daughter was
me.
born. I mean, it was like
Yeah, yeah,
like Dave
yeah,
just went in a spin cycle. You know,
yeah.
that's incredible. Before we carry on, I wanted to comment. Some of the
Okay,
comments
all right.
says, okay, so Draco says Nimue is currently growing mullein and getting ready to harvest it soon. Yes, because this
Oh,
would be
cool.
the season to
Right.
definitely do that. Um, she is of Native American and Indigenous Canadian ancestry,
Oh,
descendant of fur traders in Canada who intermarried with
oh,
Indigenous
right,
women.
right. Yeah,
She is Metis, Metis. I hope I'm
yeah, yeah,
saying that
yeah.
properly.
Métis. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, excellent. Wonderful. And oh, I'm wondering like how so I know that the Southwest herbalism is so different than the herbalism of Canada and of like like the Midwest and the plains and all of that, like totally oh now would that be Métis? Métis? Did I say that correctly from what you've typed here?
Are you asking me, or?
I'm asking Draco.
Oh, oh, okay.
Métis. And I would assume that if that is the pronunciation, it's most likely like kind of a French spelling.
Probably.
Like it
Yeah.
might be the name of their tribe, but when they, put letters to it so that we could say it, they probably did it from their language base.
If it was French, yeah, the S's are
Métis.
usually silent. Yeah.
Métis, he says,
Yeah.
yes. And that would be kind of a French way of saying that word because, English would look at that and say métis.
Right.
So it means mixed blood in French. Oh, see how good I am. Yep, I knew that when you were trying to tell me the pronunciation. Very interesting. I had no idea. That's wonderful. Um, that is so cool. I would like to talk to you guys about if you are interested in doing some more Southwestern herbal lore studies, you may want to look into the books of Michael Moore. Okay, he was an amazing herbalist when he was alive. He covered just about every plant you could ever imagine. And it's the Mountain West and the Desert West books that you want to get. And if you ever like get out to the Pacific, like for California and stuff, you would want to also collect the Pacific book. But definitely get the Mountain West and the Desert West of those books. You will be utterly amazed. And your herbal practice will so get in line with what grows out there. Also, I might want to connect you with Kiva Rose and Jesse Harden, who also goes by Wolf Harden, and they live in New Mexico, and they have an amazing bioregional herbalism, and they have programs and other things, and they run an amazing herbal festival that they're probably going to have one again this year, so I'll definitely tell you about it. So, and yes, Mountain West and the Desert West, you'll look them up. Yes, they're so worth it. You will thank me for that reference. Okay, I have them. They're packed away now because I don't live in the desert or in the mountain states anymore. I live in the Pacific states, but it is amazing material in there. And actually, I should still have access to them because occasionally I go to the desert and those books cross over a lot. So, Just letting you know, the Mountain West one is the really big one because it covers like all of the Western states to some degree. And then the specialist of the Pacific states is different than the desert, like meaning the Arizona, New Mexico, and even Southern California desert has some different stuff than the mountain states. So just letting you know about that. That's really cool. So, okay, I guess we'll get back to where we left off.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for the segue.
Before we move on, I wanted to just cover the theanthropy a little more, and then we can move on. But that's see all of these facets for me: the legendarium, my basic curiosity in things, they're all active at the same time. So even though we may be speaking of one thing or another, you got to remember, if you want to understand where Dave Woosley's coming from, that all these things are simultaneously active. So I actually wrote a definition, because the link I gave for the therianthropy definition is a good one, but it's not how I would write it. I would write.
Oh, interesting.
It like I would write it like this, and I'm very technical, so this is Dave Woosley's definition, and I will put in the definition of what asymptotically equivalent is. I'll paste that afterwards.
Okay.
So I'm interested in mathematics also, and if anybody who knows me, even for a little while, it's going to come out, because I use a lot of mathematical where other people will use, like, I don't know. It depends on where they're coming from. They might use literary terms when they're talking about Tolkien, because he's considered, a literary author by most people, and the Lord of the Rings, from their point of view, is a complete fiction that Tolkien wrote because, I don't know, he got a wild hair up his ass one day or whatever. I don't know what their explanation is, but they will say stuff like that, or they may, it depends upon what their worldview is, but they typically don't come at it from a mathematical point of view, and that's another one of the differences that our path has that other places just don't. I mean,
yeah, because you do a lot. So I mean, I just can tell from just the way that you think, because of your interest in astronomy, you have a lot of resonance with how the stories are told, and you compare notes with how astronomy works, and actually that ended up helping form our calendar for Tia Eldalieva.
Yeah,
and even for Ilsalunte Valion.
Right.
I mean, that's some really cool stuff.
It actually got me started originally on the Art of Timeline, where basically what I did was I took the descriptions of the stellar positions in the Silmarillion and precessed it backwards to make things, to see if there were any matches to what was described in the text, and in fact there are. But it's a full precessional cycle backwards. It's over 30,000 years, BCE. So
wow.
That's where a lot of the elves awakening and so forth. Everything matches up there. The way when Varda went forth from the council and she made new stars and greater, to for the coming of the firstborn, that everything that's described in that text matches up at that time of
right. And you would not only look at the stars, but you even go back in time to see what the star layout was like 5,000, 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So that you could even match up like approximately when that lore came into being.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty fascinating to me. And Draco and Nimue say that was amazing work, by the way.
Oh,
that you did. So, yeah.
I got to get back into it. It's just this summer has been kind of weirded out.
It's been, well, it's getting everything prepared so that you can like rest in the dog days, right? And then harvest season will come after. Yeah.
And let's see. Well, I don't know exactly how to work this in, but in my notes I have about how you've noticed you were the one who actually to tell me this. I mean, with my version of shamanism, which I suppose you could call it a form of magic work or whatever. I don't really know
Yes,
since I don't come out of neo-pagan culture, so I don't know really what these things are called. I
I
come out of
understand.
you know I
Yeah,
come out of basically science culture essentially. So
yeah, yeah, right.
but but you've mentioned to me in the past that a lot of the people, as you know, as a group, we've run afoul of various fools of one sort or another who have done magical workings against us, and I barely noticed it. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, because your signature, and I think that it has not only you being on the spectrum of either autism or Aspergian,
mhm.
but I also believe that your alignments with the Legendarium and other things, like it just really throws people off with your energy. Like they don't get you. So it's
Right,
hard to
right,
do work against you when they don't understand you.
right. Yeah, I tried to explain it to my daughter once, and she asked, and because she was also getting interested in magical works and stuff like that. So this
Aw.
is this is the way this is the way uh,
Yeah. So yeah, that's I mean that's a good thing to work in.
right,
I think that having that viewpoint of your, and I will just call it your energetic constitution,
right,
is
right.
just
Okay.
really different.
Hmm.
And it's so different that in a sense it might be even invisible to others who would try to get something to stick to you, if that
Right,
makes sense.
right, right. Yeah,
And
like
I'm
in
not going to
the
say that like it doesn't do anything, because sometimes it's like, oh, there's this mosquito flying around, I'm trying
yeah,
to smack it, you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like it could be
yeah. It really
annoying.
depends. It really depends on who well, on who's doing it and what techniques they're using. And if they have any skill. I'm sure there's that to it. A lot
Right,
of people a lot
right.
of people think they have skill, but they actually don't. So
Right. Well, and your own, I have to admit, and this is a segue again. This is brief, I promise, but I'm gonna just say, Dave, I have noticed over time your shamanic talents, and I'll put shamanic in quote marks
mhm.
because it depends on what people would call shamanism. I'm
Right, right, yeah,
using the term as a more of a universal term, kind of
right,
the way Terence McKenna uses it, rather
right,
than for a specific culture.
right,
Okay,
right.
but I don't know a different word that means what I'm talking about,
There's
so I'm
nothing
gonna
that's
just
really
put
suitable.
shamanic
Yeah,
in
yeah,
quotes.
yeah.
So I'm going to say that your shamanic and magical talents have way increased
Mhm.
since we began working in the path. And um, can I share a story about? I mean, briefly about us disarming a witch, like trying to spy on you,
Oh
like
yeah,
when we
yeah.
first met.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
So
That was an episode,
um, yeah, so what happens is, because Dave was, not a pagan, but was open to other like viewpoints of spiritual and energetics and other things, and he was working, and I don't even remember her name, and it's probably not important, but
Megwin, I think, or some
there
weird
was
name
a
like that.
woman who was trying to work with Dave with something, and told Dave to make a witch's jar and how to put it together and everything. Now, anybody that practices this type of thing knows that it's not just what you're putting into the jar, but it's also the intention that is put into the thing. So even though Dave had assembled this, she did a Sauron moment where she like put intention into his jar, like meaning energetically. Okay, and when he told me this story, I immediately like knew that it's like, oh, she made him make that device for him so that she could spy on him.
You were like, get rid of that shit, yo.
And I said, Dave, you need to take that out and, you know, like take it apart, destroy it, you know, throw it away, like whatever. But yeah, like I was just getting, she was spying on you with that. But interestingly, I think about that now, and I bet she still didn't get very much about you because, again, your signature is so different that she would be like probably looking at white noise. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Like
yeah.
she probably wasn't even successful. However, I say take out the trash, you know, anytime that it's trash, right? So, you know, and I just tuned in on it because I'm familiar enough with making spells and all of the stuff now that, and I learned that like not everybody has high intentions. That was one of my biggest lessons in paganism and you know, witchcraft and all the related, you know, pathways that like even would be related to that, is that there are people with intentions of harm and that they think that it's okay to harm others. And by the way, that is more prevalent now than it even was in 2005. Okay. Just saying.
Right.
There are so many, you know, of these, you know, kind of witch wars and, you know, like all of this kind of stuff nowadays. And all you have to do is, you know, Insta-witch on Instagram, and you can see like people like, you know, don't fuck with me, I'll curse you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and it's like, seriously, you guys? Did you guys read the threefold law? You know, even if you don't want to follow it, that's fine. But did you know that your butt will fry somewhere, like, and you will be paying 3 times the amount of what that costed? You know, like, seriously? Well, and even if you don't believe in the threefold law, anybody that like can go, you know, whatever you put out comes back. You know, like, hello, you know. So
well, it's like some, you know, a person may truly not believe that the cops won't get them if they go to the next door neighbor and shoot them in the head, but I pretty much guarantee that there will be a response, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's frightening. Hey, I forgot to copy your other comment down here. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. I apologize.
Okay.
And this is one of your therianthropy.
Right.
And is it tropy or theropy?
Thropy.
Like at the end. Theropy. Okay. Therianthropy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And side note, if any of you are interested, somewhere in the depths of my stuff, my hard drive crashed, my storage hard drive, but somewhere in my emails or something, I can retrieve it. I have a PDF copy of a book that has been out of print for many years by Lupa Greenwolf, that is about the otherkin, and it was very well done. She
sent that to me.
Did not want it in print anymore because she doesn't align with the work anymore. She herself has I believe that she has a wolf therianthropy.
Mm-hmm. That's quite possible.
And by the way, you know, she went into counseling, she went into psychology, like she became a therapist. I completely understand why she would want that work reframed or just not in existence anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, because she went through that whole discovery path. But what I loved about it is that she did a lot of research that like otherkin type people weren't doing. Like, you know, they were just kind of going along with whatever. And that wasn't being very documented. It wasn't being, you know, like studied as a science or, you know, like psychological science or anything. She did a lot of work towards that. And I really admire her. And if anybody needs it, I will, you know, like, you know, that is a patron. Okay. Like, I need to have you guys be patrons if you're going to get it. Let me know and I will share it with you. I can't just share it publicly because that's not right to Lupa. But you know, she is really cool. I'm friends with her on Facebook. I really admire her work. I admire her new work that she's even doing. She's published a few things with Llewellyn since then. And she's a wonderful lady, really wonderful. So, okay, Draco and Nimue say I would be interested in reading that because PDF. I'm sorry. I am a wolf therianthrope according to these definitions. Wow, very cool, Draco. Very cool. So, okay, I will get you that. I will find it and I will get that to you.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Just to, before I move on, in bears and wolves are pretty much circumpolar creatures. So they appear here in North America. They also appear in Europe and into Siberia also. My animal connection to the tiger, that's actually in the Malay language. It's actually called, I think, if I'm not I'm not a linguist, so I may be completely murdering the term, but I believe it's pronounced Harimau Jadian, which means simulation tiger. In other words, these are people that can that can basically shape. A lot of therianthropy is about shape shifting. The person can shift it, and that's what the simulation, or some people translate it as imitation. It's not really an imitation. Simulation, where that they can shift back and forth to between a human form and a tiger form. And for me, that actually takes place as sending out, especially with the power of salvia, sending out my consciousness in the shape of a tiger. And some people,
well, and can I give an example of that, because we're being really intimate today.
Right.
So I was in Ireland back in the fall of 2022. I take it back. During, it was right after the COVID was ending. We were flying around on airplanes without masks. There was no vax mandates. There was no testing. All of that is over in Europe, by the way. Like, none of that was, that they were still doing it in America like a little bit long, and in Europe it's been like they knew that it was over and done with. Okay, so letting you guys know that. And even in Germany, I didn't have any problem when I was going through there, because that could have been a trick. Okay. Oh, Draco adds, it is connected to my ancestry in Northern Europe and to Norse heathenry. And he was speaking about the wolf therianthropy.
Right.
It being a part of his ancestry in Northern Europe and also of Norse heathenry. So yes, I could see that. I have a note thing here. I know that I'm down in the corner of this, but I have a note thing. So I wrote down the Lupa book to our patron, Ian. And I also put Howie Brownstein's Herbal Smoke. I'm sorry, Draco, not, okay. And Howie Brownstein's Herbal Smokes. I will put that link either in the comments or what have you, so that you guys can find that link. Okay.
I believe I have the Lupa book here, Ian. I could just, after this broadcast is over, I could just email it to you.
Okay, so Dave, okay, you could email it to him?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And any of our patrons that want that, we are totally happy to provide that. If you're not a patron, I don't know, make an arrangement with us, okay? Something, I don't know, but I don't want to just make it publicly all over the place, because it's disrespectful to Lupa, and I don't want it like that. And when I bought this from her, before it went out of print, because she was warning everybody, hey guys, I'm taking this out of print because I don't agree with this anymore. And I knew her stance on it. And so when I bought it from her, I told her, hey, listen, this is really only for our information in the path, because there is so much tie over with some of the people that come to the Elven Path, and they want to know about the otherkin thing, and I don't have any good resources for them because everything on the internet is, well, kind of shite. Okay.
Right, right, right. Yeah, you can say that again.
So she has a really well documented, and the movement back then was like, I think that it was so much more genuine than it even is today. And we even had problems back in the day, like with people like, collect them all Pokemon,
Right, right.
Yeah. Like,
Well,
just,
well,
I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. And, when somebody opens themselves up to that many energetics, it can be really, really difficult for them to navigate the planet.
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the problem that I mean, when we first
Yeah.
started,
And disowning their humanness is like a real problem as
when
well.
we first started TE, we got a lot of people on UTOK. I mean, I didn't even know there was such a
Yeah.
thing as otherkin. To me,
Me neither.
otherkin immediately brings a mind a quote from the Silmarillion, where Calantir
Yes.
is basically confronting. Um, his name slips my mind now. It's basically the husband, the dark elf Aol,
Oh, right, right.
who took the Noldoran lady to wife by force, and he's out looking for her because she escaped with her son, and Caranthir is like, basically, you can't use the title of your wife to gain favor with me. Yeah, I know you're a dark elf, even though your wife is of other kin, and that's immediately what I thought of
Right.
other
And
kin.
and that
But
might have even been the origin of the word, because how many words did Tolkien provide to, like, say, even neo-paganism, like the
right,
Wheel of the Year with the Letha
right,
coming from the Hobbit,
right,
calendar for midsummer,
right.
and that they actually call that holiday Letha, and a lot of witches do not know that word directly comes from Tolkien,
Yeah,
and they didn't know that the eightfold calendar is a new invention, because in traditional, so for instance, Draco aligns with Northern European traditions, which typically align their holidays of the calendar observances with the solstices as well as the equinoxes. The Celtic tribes tended to align theirs in the cross quarters. So, for instance, Imbolc, Beltane, Lughnasadh, and Samhain. Okay, those were the holidays. And interestingly, they fall exactly, one, two, three, four, five. I mean, it makes a perfect eightfold wheel. I think that it was a wonderful invention. But people need to know that it's an invention.
exactly.
They go around, oh, this is as old as time. Kinda, not really.
I
The
mean,
eightfold wheel is new, and it's a beautiful thing. I think that it's really awesome to be able to pause at 8 times a year instead of 4 times a year. Okay, in order for, like, honoring ancestors, and many of us are blended. So, over here, I'm part German Norwegian and part Irish, so I get to, like, align with the German Norwegian side during Yule, okay, and midsummer, and the equinoxes, okay, because these were important times in their calendar shifting.
I'm
Okay.
I'm a really weird mix. I'm part Choctaw from my dad's side, part
Yeah.
Ukrainian from my mother's, and with some Welsh and German from my father's side also. So,
Wow. Yeah,
there
that
you
is a
are.
mix. And
Yeah,
for me, I will say that there is a rumor that we have Native American blood, but when my mother went and tested herself, turns out that there's no markers of Native blood. But then I learned from a genealogist that if the markers would come down the female line, they will never show on the test. You have to pay like some
yeah,
$3,000
it's a
in
different
order
test.
to have the
Yeah.
correct test for actual lineage of Native American. And most people are not going to go through this kind of trouble. And I don't think that there's any incentive for having a less expensive version, because they don't want, like, the United States is not interested in everybody going on the dole because they have part Native American.
Right, yeah.
That
would kind of fuck
because
up
that is a risk that they
yeah,
take. So
yeah.
they're not interested in making, So let me see here. Nimue says, I had no idea about Otherkin anything until I went on Facebook, and it was so overwhelming with the people saying things like, I'm a fairy unicorn Mothman.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And Draco is like quoting, meaning sarcastically, I'm sure. The Eightfold is as old as time. So yes and no, exactly, and LOL, yes, well, exactly.
I'm sure the astronomical alignments are as old as time.
Yes,
and Stonehenge
absolutely
was arranged according to some of them, but that's not
that's
the same
correct.
Thing.
Yes, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. The way that the Eightfold calendar, I mean, it was several neo-pagans back in the day, they all got together and said, hey, we should mix these calendars, and they did, and I think it was a good mix, but you need to be honest about where it comes from, and especially when they're using like names from Tolkien for things like to identify, for instance, their midsummer holiday.
Yeah,
incredible.
I remember we caught flack from that when we found that research, and they're like, no,
yes,
it isn't.
Well, but when John Michael Greer said it, then everybody was like, oh, that guy's an expert, so we'll leave them alone now, because that's what I would do is I would just get the Llewellyn.com quote from John Michael Greer and throw it at people, and then they went, oh, and they couldn't argue with me anymore.
But some of them still got pissed off as if we had contaminated their mythos or something,
No, they contaminate themselves. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, I'm not, hey, listen, anybody out there listening, okay, I am not recruiting you away from witchcraft and all of the stuff. If you like that, you go right ahead. We are only here for people that align with the texts of Tolkien in a spiritual sense, and they feel it, and that's why they're here.
Exactly.
Okay, and you can have other associations, you can have all of these things, but we exist, and our common element is our relationship to Tolkien. And on that note, Dave, why don't we go back to like maybe where we were in your notes so that we can get back to the Tolkien Legendarium and how, and so the next part I'm guessing is once you read the Silmarillion and then trying to find people for the next 30 years that were not role players or Otherkin, but that came later.
Yeah, I didn't even know about Otherkin until my 2005 effort.
Yes, same here.
But basically,
and I learned it actually before I found you because of my friend Fern, who was involved in the Otherkin community through Elven Realities, through Realian, and the Yahoo group that was about that. That is the only way I knew about it before I came to the path, and I had no idea that it was so common.
My very first attempt was when I was going to junior high, and that didn't work. One, because I didn't get along with most of those people.
My God! And junior high, wow, ouch.
And because I had the actual technical name for the neurological disease is called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and what it is, it's very similar to a type of MS that resolves on its own after a few years. But what it does is it demyelinates the neural transmission fibers. Now, this is not for sensation. This is only to voluntarily move your muscles. And so it makes you partially paralyzed to various degrees. I was paralyzed enough where I couldn't walk. But like I said, sensation is not affected, but moving is. So I couldn't walk, and so I was the school system at that time. There was no such thing as homeschool, or if there was, my parents hadn't heard of it.
Right? Yeah, sure.
So the school system sent a tutor for the rest of that year, and then the next year I was enough. I could walk, but not much. But because I was different, then immediately the junior high teenager said, "Aha, a freak! Let's torment the freak." you know. So
Oh, yeah, because that's what happens in junior high. Oh my
yeah,
God.
so
It's a treacherous
so
time.
I was getting beat up on what I
You could be
couldn't.
the most normal person, by the
Yeah.
way, and get shit in junior high school, because that
So
is
all,
just such a treacherous age.
so
It's
all the so
terrible.
all that shit that they used to say at the time about boys will be boys, you just gotta hit them back. I couldn't hit them back. I'm mostly paralyzed. All right, so
Wow.
they're beating up a cripple is what they're doing. Now I guess that makes them.
Yes.
I guess that
Yeah.
makes them feel like real men or whatever. You know,
Right. And
but
at the time, that was probably exactly what was going on.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I endured it. My dad went and talked to the principals, but that didn't do shit. They were just like,
No,
oh well,
they
boys will
won't,
be
because they're
boys.
afraid of the bully's parents. I'm
Yeah,
going to tell
yeah,
you that's what's going on with that.
yeah.
I realized it when I was a child, picked on, and I went to the authorities, nothing happened. I went to my parents, nothing happened. And like you just said, you just survive it.
Mm,
And
right,
then when I grew up and had my own kids, I'm like, like, this is not going to happen to my kids.
right.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I got no support from the school. So I'm like, well, shit, I got to take this in my own hands. And so I went and looked for the bullies myself.
Hmm.
If the school wasn't going to do it, I'm like, I'll take over. And I just went
Right,
right up to the kid and said, you touch my children again, you will find yourself in another freaking universe.
right,
Okay.
right.
They
Exactly.
were
Yeah.
so scared of me that they were like, right?
A
It was
witch.
so perfect. My kids never got bothered again. Other people's might have, but I
Yeah,
figured that, hey, it's up to the parents to look after their kids. I don't know what
exactly.
else to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but
So
yeah. So I understand though. Junior high is treacherous.
anyway,
Treacherous.
that didn't work. There was one dude who was somewhat interested, but he was not nearly at the level of knowledge that I was. So he
Oh,
was.
that yeah. Oh
Yes, he
yeah.
was kind of interested, and my friend
Yeah.
because he also had at the time he had broken his leg in some sort of accident, so he was walking around with with the crutches and the cast on the leg. Apparently, it was a fairly bad break because it was on the cast was on most of the year. But anyway,
Wow.
so he was kind of interested, but he wasn't at my level, so there wasn't much I could really talk with him. I would talk with him about some of the deeper things in the Legendarium, and he would it would go over his head. So I'm like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do much here. So then I went to
Yeah.
Costa Rica not long after that, and
Right. And which
that was
changed
a
your
different
entire
culture.
environment. Oh my God.
Uh, and that was a completely different culture, and
Absolutely.
the Latinos, generally speaking, are not that interested in Tolkien, or they weren't then. I don't know about now, but
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
not there in
Well,
Costa
maybe
Rica.
not the young kids. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. Wow.
So and
Incredible. They
then
probably are now,
you
but
know,
not back then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So then came back to the States when not long after I had turned 20. And then it's a completely different thing. And then I start going to junior college. We left from Illinois. See, I moved around a lot because my dad, as I told you, was an aircraft tech. So
Yes.
before
Yeah.
before we left when I was 16 for Costa Rica, I just turned 16 then. I had lived in, let's see, I was born in Washington State, then California, two places in California, then Illinois, three places in Illinois, and then the big jump from Illinois to Costa Rica, then from Costa Rica to Oregon. So
Wow.
we moved around a lot. So
That's crazy. Wow. That's a lot for a kid.
yeah,
And that at that age too. That's
right.
incredible.
So and then I'm in Oregon there, and so I go to the junior college, and there were some people there that were interested, but that was where I first got my exposure to Usenet, because yeah, since it was a college, they were connected to the Usenet network, and I don't even know if modern people know what Usenet is, but you had a bunch of things called news groups, and it was all text based because the World Wide Web didn't exist then. There was no HTML. They had to invent it. And this was back in
Wow. Yes.
like
Yeah. The
1986.
news groups,
So
boy, that's way, way
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
and I found alt fan Tolkien and rec books arts Tolkien. They would separate it by dots. So it'd be like rec dot arts dot books dot Tolkien, and there are
Yeah.
different names, and they would discuss similar stuff but somewhat different. And that's
Yeah.
also where I found I think it was called alt dot fan dot werewolves. It was a therianthropy group, but it was all collapsed into werewolves. The other therianthropes were like, it was an early state of recognition, so a lot of people were not out with
Wow.
it yet.
I didn't
So
even know about
and
that, actually.
yeah, yeah,
Very
and
cool.
in fact, that's why some of the other can think that, well, it all started with alt.fan.werewolves. Some people who later identified as otherkin did come out of that group, but there's some who
I was going to
maintain.
say, but that's
Yeah,
like not a universal
right,
decision. Sure.
right, right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, so that's where I got a first idea that there's wider stuff out there, that it isn't just work your 8 hours a day, go home, sleep, and get up and repeat the whole
Right.
thing over. You know, I,
Yeah.
I I said, well,
There's
there's
a
some
different
other.
reality that you're working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some other freaks out there. There might be different freaks than me, but they're freaks nonetheless. Uh,
But you have a unique, I think that your role in the energetic planes is so unique.
mhm.
It's literally like nobody else. It's
That's
literally like no one else.
And
Okay.
you have contact with a lot of people, so when Lisa says this, you should
Yes.
listen, because she's
I have a
contacted a lot.
lot of contact with a lot
Yeah,
of people.
yeah.
I network with people who are, range in all the Eastern, mythos, Vedic astrologers that like are devoted yogis, like all of the stuff. And then like astrologers, many, many psychic readers, many, many like witchy types, pagan
Mhm.
types, heathen types, druid types, like green witch types, like, traditional witchcraft types, everything. And Taria just sent me a thank you. She might join us on the video.
Oh, okay,
So
that's cool.
I told a whole bunch of people earlier, and
Oh,
oh,
okay.
funny, Taria. Okay, so I got another note from Taria, but it was Taria, the singer of Nightwish, because she's actually going to be playing here in LA, and I'm
Oh,
debating on going. I'm not sure,
interesting.
but
Okay. Mhm.
it's like, oh, how funny! It's like two Tarias, like right in a row. Anyway, um, so I will, and to get back to the story about Ireland, with Dave's talent. Okay, so just so that you can see how very unique he is. Um, I was staying in a cottage that was literally rotting. Okay. Um,
Mold
it was
inside
it
the
was
wall.
very old, and the old part was actually really kind of charming in a way, but the place was absolutely filled with black mold, absolutely everywhere. And the person who was living there, that I was like watching the cat and all of the stuff, wasn't lighting the fire in the fireplace for the year that they lived there. So all the moisture was building, and it wasn't keeping the black mold at bay. And it was pretty treacherous. Okay. And I was there in the fall and winter. So it was going into the cold season, and it was already raining all the time and some stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to get sick. Right. And also, I had a problem with the cat, of which I now realized he was probably as sensitive also to the mold and everything, but he was also sensitive to something else, and I'll be getting to that because it's kind of has, like Dave saw, like an overlay on this. And earlier than this, my friend, I connected this person with my friend who is a land healer, and she did a nice big land healing. And right after she did that, her house flooded. So that told me that it washed away the imprint of whatever that was. But in the physical, it literally could make the problem worse, right? So it was like, you had to light a fire in this place, or else you would get sick. Okay. And it might have even been what was making my friend crazy. Okay. Like, seriously. So, you know, and I think she was even like thinking like, hey, maybe that's what's wrong with me. And I'm thinking maybe, yeah, like, you know, you should like look at it. I think that there's other things going on, but whatever. Okay. Definitely, like, you know, black mold does not make your physical or mental health well at all. Okay. So I was pretty desperate because I couldn't get out of there right away. And so I was talking to Dave one day, and I just said, oh my God, I really don't know what to do, like, about this situation that I have. And the Salvia people had come in and was like, knock, knock, like, we have some ideas. And Dave is like, what's going on? You know? And I'm like, hey, can we do this? Like, you know, can we talk to the Salvia people? And then, so also your Tiger Therian, who you named Richard Parker after the Life of Pi movie.
After the Tiger and the Life of Pi. Yeah.
Kind of also showed up. And I'm like, okay, this is a party. Salvia people, Dave, me, you know, and Richard Parker. Like, let's rock and roll, right? So, and not only did you remove like trapped spirits from the the underground part of the house, which, by the way, this place was definitely 130 years old or older. Okay. So who knows, like, what what kind of things were buried on the ground before they made that particular building. He also realized that there were the same spirits that were doing that were like coming up through the walls and messing with the cat, because the cat, now interestingly, Dave didn't know this, but the cat would scratch at the walls and say, "Meow," and he never did that anywhere else. Like, he would just, you know, scratch the walls. And he never used his box, his litter box. He always peed on the floor or in the tub or somewhere else. He hardly ever used his litter box for pee or poo. And we knew that there was something wrong. And like, I couldn't talk to him and say, hey, use your box, or, you know, whatever. So we had to get him out of there. And I actually facilitated that transfer of the cat back to the other person that is actually now the owner of the cat, like, for good. And that was supposed to happen because the cat is now happy, and he like immediately blended right back into his environment. But while he was with me, you know, I think he was just dealing the best he could. You know, he was so unhappy there. And the thing is that Dave and his tiger spirit and the Salvia people did a healing on the house, and they removed the spirits from the house. And then Dave told me that the Salvia people said, you still need to light a fire in here every day, and you need to get out of here as soon as you can.
Yeah, that was a very
so I said, okay. And so I, you know, kept my immune system up. I also lit a fire in that every day. I did not skip one day. I lit a fire in that fireplace every day. Okay. And I did not get sick. Remarkably, with the amount of black mold that was in there, would have made anybody sick, I'm telling you. And I am like vulnerable to that because I've actually been in lesser situations and have gotten very sick. I did not get sick. And I really do believe that the Salvia people and the tiger spirit were like, they were kind of making the house good enough for me to get the heck out of there. And then once I got out of there, you know, like, right, well, okay, yeah, like whatever, you know. And
if you remember, the Richard Parker's spirit actually spoke to the cat to try to calm him down, you know.
Yes,
it's like
yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
And he was better. He didn't really improve his bathroom habits. Mm-hmm. But once I think he knew that he was going back to his daddy, okay, right, like, you know, his house where, you know, the other two cats live. I think that he knew that he was on his way home. And then it took a while for the two cats that were there to accept him again, because they were kind of like, who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? But now they're all getting along and wonderful. And my friend actually, like, he sends me footage of the cat and how happy he is. And it's really cool. And, you know, unfortunately, I ended up like losing that friendship because, you know, it was like, I guess that like the energy of the toxicity of the environment was showing me like a reflection of the toxicity in the relationship.
Well, if you remember, I was worried for you going before I even knew what was going on.
Yes, you were.
You know, I'm
Yes,
like,
you
"Are you
were.
sure you really want to go? It doesn't sound good to me," you know.
I know. Well, but I mean, I also was fine. So, you know, meaning because of you and
Right,
because
right,
of, I mean, and I had a lot of
right,
lucky breaks, by the way, traveling in
right.
Europe with, you know, like I opened up and said, okay, spirit, like show me where to go. And so, you know, I cut my trip down from 3 months to 6 weeks. I spent 2 of those weeks with the person that the cat went to. Okay. And I had to get the other person to agree to all of this. And that was very challenging because this person decided to be very controlling, but then realized, yeah, it's for the best, and finally released it. And then had said, you know, I never want to hear about this again, because that's how much, you know, she really didn't really want to deal with that. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So I was like, oh, wow. Like, are we like, you know, is this a little bit of a dissociative, you know,
Yeah.
part? And then it turns out that that's exactly what was going on. And I won't go further into that, but needless to say, when people are that dissociative, it's very difficult to not only be their friend, but especially like if you are a reader for them, like, you know, at the levels of like spirit, um, it can be very disconcerting because you kind of like when they splinter into different personalities, like you don't, you know, like there's no like blending of energy like that gets those integrated, and it's very difficult to like know what you're dealing with. Like you only get half the picture, you know, kind of thing, and then you know that something's missing, right? And every time that I would like be put on the spot for some of these types of things, it would be like I would get a wrong reading, and it turned out it was because of this schism. And I also knew that, like, I asked my pendulum, does this person want to be aware and integrate their schism? And it said no. And I said, is this person contracted for this? It said yes. I'm like, well, I can't do anything about that. So I ended up leaving, but I just want to tell Dave again, thank you publicly now.
Oh, no,
Well, or
no problem.
semi-publicly, for
Yeah,
saving
yeah,
my ass when I was in Ireland, and also for Luthien and her, like, you know, helping me, because I got to
right,
stay there
right.
for
Yeah.
almost a week, and maybe it was exactly a week. I don't remember the exact days, but
I think it was about a week, as I remember
it was,
it.
it might have
Yeah,
been 5 days, but you know
yeah,
what?
yeah.
I had such a great time with
Mhm.
that, and I slept for the first time in weeks because of this whole situation.
Right,
My friend had a wonderful property, but it was off grid and it was cold, and so I didn't sleep well because of the cold, and that's not his fault. Okay, like he, you know, like he did exactly what he was supposed to do, but I have such a weak constitution because I'm a SoCal girl.
yeah,
Right? So, you know, like freezing rain in Ireland, you know, hitting from the coast, beautiful, but not my cup of tea, like for my physical body. It was very difficult for me.
right.
So I knew I couldn't really stay there very long, but at least I wasn't breathing black mold and having terrible things. And the cat immediately like integrated right into the household as soon as the cats were welcoming, but he never had an accident one time when he got back.
Wow.
So that was tremendous. Okay. I'm going to read some comments here, and these are kind of, you know, like, because we've been all over the freaking map. Indigo Crystals Forum was another otherkin-oriented one that crossed
That's
over
right.
with Tolkien, and I said, yes, I indeed remember Ravenwolf.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Draco and Nimue say, Dave, be a shaman and a powerful ally. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. I have to admit, like, if and a couple of other times, and so can I talk about the Mandrake stuff?
If you, yeah,
Let me ask.
I don't have any
Let me
problem with
ask. Should I disclose about the Mandrake? It says no. God damn it. Okay, so we have crossed into a relationship with a different plant. Okay, and we've definitely had our moments where like salvia and that plant and some other stuff like come in and we're all talking kind of and solving the world's problems. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Dave, this is like a really recent development with you as well. And I want to acknowledge that because I really think that because of your absolutely unique energetic signature, you are the only person that can do exactly what you do. Like, it's incredible.
Well, it's basically
incredible.
Plant spirits talking to plant spirits. So, I'm just
I know. But that's how, and when I do herbalism and astrology and other things, it's literally relationships between this person, this illness, this plant, this planet, this star, this, the earth, the house. Like, I mean, it seems like I'm the mediator between all of it.
Right.
So it's very relationship oriented more than it is like, take this herb and call me in the morning because I read it in a book.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing like that. Yeah.
I know. There's a lot of energetic component toward all of this. And I think that like when your guides told you that you're going to get stronger and stronger in this talent as you get older, I mean, I could see that. I could see it and I believe it. And I just want to let like our patrons know like what an energetic badass you are. And it's great. And we haven't had, some certain problems that used to be haunting us,
yes.
That are, and by the way, on that note, we can publicly say, so I am in the process of securing a mailing address in Los Angeles area for Tia Eldalieva along with my business. And so when that happens, we can then get a new EIN number and start over and therefore have a clean slate and get rid of all the trash.
Yes, all the former person who has been
yes, well, particularly the one former person. But I mean, in a way, we had two former people that kind of, like made it problematic. And interestingly, they are the same ones that wanted the nonprofit so badly. And then once it happened, one of them decided to leave because, just very sensitive, whatever issues. And we're like, no, we're not a political organization. Okay. And then the other one was like, really definitely had criminal intent.
Yeah. Financial criminal, embezzlement.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, just FYI, guys, we've already told Draco and Nimue, but like anybody else that's listening that might be a patron or just even getting this link and you just, you're curious, we never suffered financial loss, but we caught it in time before the loss would have happened.
It would have progressed that way.
It would have been a terrible thing if I wasn't paying attention and going, wait a minute,
Well,
as soon as things started going really sideways, I started looking at a pattern and realized, oh my goodness, this is being set up like incredibly. And then part of that was like even Dekindre reviewing the bylaws and, and then me like watching the domain name management stuff and then the treasurer stuff and all of the things and going, this does not look good. Now, we did actually legit borrow some money from her when she originally got some disability money that was a lump sum because she was waiting for a long time. And so I'm like, wow, that was really nice. Thank you. And I wanted to pay her back. But I knew that it was like in the, say, $1,000 range. Like it wasn't in the $4,000 range, like which was what she was asking. And I'm like, we did not spend this kind of money. Like, no, like no. And she was trying to gaslight me and convince me, yes, we did. You said yes to all of this stuff. I'm like, no, I said yes to about $1,000 because I've been keeping a mental total. It's about $1,000. When she finally provided the receipts, I did the math and it came out to about $1,000, and I rejected all the ones that I didn't approve, and literally was like, wow, $3,000. And most of the $3,000 were like hotel expenses and stuff for her personal use, which was not acceptable. You know. And by the way, we were beginning to pay her back all the money, okay, because by then we changed over the Patreon, all of the stuff, and we were paying her back, and then she like waived her interest in our payments, saying that she did a write-off, and so she got us off the hook free and clear. So I just want to tell everybody out there that we did not lose any money in the process of all of this. However, it has been an aggravating thorn in our side when we get paperwork and threats and all of this kind of stuff. This has pretty much disappeared now, but we just want to start over. And we had a board meeting back in March, our annual meeting, and we discussed this. So we're kind of putting some stuff together in order to like create a new EIN number, a new, state arrangement, a new everything, close this one down so that, she can't access this at all. Okay. So we're just closing it down, and we're going to go forward with the new operation, and it's going to be clean. So that'll be coming forth in probably 2024 if I can do the math about how that works. And that's very interesting because that's 2 Mars cycles, and it's also a third of a Jupiter cycle. And like 4 years could also, be like a half of a Venus cycle too, because the Venus cycle is 8 years. It goes to 5 points in 8 years. So it's a half of a Venus cycle as well. So just letting you guys know that, like off the record. So Dave, you're a badass. Okay. Pick up where you were on your notes.
Okay. We've jumped around, so I was looking over. I'll just cover the stuff we haven't already covered, because we already covered some that was later, and haven't covered stuff that was earlier. So,
yeah,
okay.
And Draco and Nimue say orcish behavior on their parts, absolutely, and and we'll just say it's done with and over with.
This is part of my personal. See, a lot of people, like, sometimes I've noticed in our organization, and in IV sometimes too, they get kind of like I don't know. It depends upon the person. Most people are fine, but some people think I'm like a pushover or something. But I definitely have an edge to my personality, which apparently they don't pick up. And the best way I can describe it, because I can be very I don't know what you want to call it, very logical, kind of like Mr. Spock. But I can also be like Richard B. Riddick of the Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick movies, and everybody knows who Mr. Spock is, but not everybody knows who Riddick is. So here's a little of him here, especially the part.
Okay, let me grab it.
Especially the part in the beginning where he says, "Look, I'm not with everyone here, but I will take a piece of him." And the reason he says that is because the guy who he's pointing at has just killed. Not really a friend, but someone that he knew and that brought him to that planet. So, he didn't like the way he was killed. So I'm like, I'm going to take it out on you dumb shit,
Wow. Oh my God. Well, and I do remember watching the Chronicles of Riddick, and he had like this kind of personality that he would be like super logical, but also very focused if something was in his way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I shared that video with our peeps. Yeah.
Okay. And then, you can watch it later. It's not anything anybody has to watch now. But if you want to get a better idea into my personality and not be surprised, well, I thought this Dave Woosley dude was nice and he was mean to me. And I'm like, well, if he was mean to you, you got to sort of examine your.
You got to examine why. because
what
you
people
had good
say. Yeah,
reason
yeah,
usually to be provoked. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then the
glad
other
I've never
thing
gotten you that
that
pissed off, by the way.
right, and then the other
I
thing,
don't think
the
I
other
want
thing
to be on the other end of the salvia people or Richard Parker. Thank you very much.
no, the Snowy people might not do anything. Richard Parker might, but because he's more
Richard Parker might.
he's harder
Yeah.
to control, but even for me.
Yeah, I could imagine.
But
Yeah. But wasn't it cool how he like took over like and by the way, Spirit, the cat that I was babysitting, was a Bengal.
oh yeah, that
So
was cool.
he
Yeah, I forgot
has
about that. Yeah,
like, those kind of like more primal cat energies. So it
right,
was very
right,
cool that Richard Parker took him
right,
under, it's like, hi, little kitten, you know?
right. Yeah. Oh,
Oh my
we
goodness.
haven't covered yet. Okay, we talked about the shamanic stuff. But what are I bringing to TE with regard to the knowledge of the legendarium and all that? And this is where you should bring up that.
Well, maybe you should, before you go there, maybe shoot, or unless you're going to do it afterward, tell people how you are not an elven energy person.
That is true. Yeah, like I said in the very
Okay.
beginning, but it's been a long time since I said it, so I will repeat it. My original attraction to the Legendarium was the wonderful way he described landscapes. To me, the elves were no different than dwarves or men. I mean, they were people
Yeah.
in the stories. I didn't dislike them, but I wasn't like one of those the elves type of people that you see
Right.
online
Yeah. I had
frequently.
immediate attraction to the elves.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the elven
yeah,
energy. It
yeah.
speaks highly to me. But, people don't realize that we didn't name the path for elven, view of the world, meaning our elven view. We named it the Elven Spiritual Path because of
Yeah, which is
Tolkien telling the story from the elven viewpoint.
good thing that you mentioned that because we've gotten a lot of mistakes in the past. People coming in, well, are you of elven ancestry, and this and such, or
Yeah.
or are you of the woodland elf otherkin communion and shit like that? And I'm like, I
Right.
don't even know what the
Yeah.
fuck you're talking about.
Yeah,
One
and
thing,
by
and
the way,
two, I don't.
even though I resonate with Elven, I'm not a member of any of these things.
Right.
So just FYI.
And it's weird shit from my point of view. You got to understand where I'm coming from. All this otherkin stuff, I had never heard of it before 2005. So to
Right,
me,
right.
I have to speak honestly. To me, it appears crazy. So these
Yeah. Well,
these
and
from my
some of
point of
them
view.
are. So some of them are not. I would say that, there's a boundary, but a lot of them are. And I think that I noticed that it goes in waves, like it'll disappear. And then it's like the young people find all of these things again, and it's all cultural again, and they dive right in again and
Yeah,
pull it
but
all out and recycle it. So I think that for some people, it might even be a phase because they don't want to be human.
well,
And,
I remember there was that one girl in
you know,
2005 who was like half
oh,
vampire, half werewolf, half I don't even
oh,
know what,
and yeah, and she
half
collected them
half.
like Pokemon. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember. They were like a thousand halves, basically.
Yeah.
And it would
And
change
none of
every
them were
day.
human. None of them
Yeah,
were human. And we're like, so what about the human one? Oh, no, not that one.
and
It's
it
like,
would
what?
change every day. I'm not dissing her
Yeah.
specifically. It's just that she's the one that I
But
think of when I
it
think
was
of all
very
the different
typical
people.
of what we saw.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. And yeah, so I could see where you were like, this is not the same thing as therianthropy.
Right, right, yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just basically what it is for me is that I just have no special relationship to the elven archetype. Even if it's
Right.
even if it's considered in the literary sense of an idealized human, I don't really
Yeah.
have a very good opinion of humans. So the idealized human idea just doesn't do it for me. You know.
That's funny. Uh, yeah. Well, and maybe what it is that I think that, and the way that it kind of went down in the Legendarium, the idealized humans came first and they devolved into humans, not the other way around. Now, there's certainly individuals who, in the human condition, ended up shining like a beacon, like Baron, for
Right. Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like wow, that dude was handicapped and won the regular Olympics. Like, seriously, you know,
Right, right, yeah, yeah,
that kind of human, stamina, willpower, strength, truth, honesty, valor, everything that, that guy was going through, chivalry, everything was
yeah. That's
totally in alignment, and he owned all of that and wielded it well.
no
But
argument
it
there.
was
Yeah,
like with a handicap, because it was already human,
right,
like the idealized portion had already been, if you will, sung out of the song.
right.
you know so, and if some of you do not know what we're talking about, you may want to go to our Ainu Lindale videos and listen to what we talk about with the differences of elves and men in the Ainu Lindale. And then for patrons, we have the Valaquenta video also. And we're going to be starting up studies with that again, like when we get kind of more situated with, and particularly with Dekindre, when he's not,
Right. Mm-hmm.
working around the clock and trying to pay off, like lots of bills and, all of the stuff. But, at least we have access to him again, which is great. So,
Okay.
okay, cool.
I want you to, Lisa. I want you to show that picture. That I not
Okay,
not my picture,
the one that's from
yeah,
the email. Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can do that.
The one with the quote.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm going to see if I can enlarge
Yeah.
it.
If you can enlarge it a bit, but
Not that much.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's good
hang
right
on.
there.
I'll find it.
Okay. That looks fairly good. Whoop.
I know it's okay there, and I'll just scroll it down.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, basically, so she gets it basically stable. That's it there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's most of it, and it's worth fighting for is the last sentence there. So
Right.
anyway, take a look at this, or read the
Okay,
text.
you know what? I'll go ahead and read it aloud, so because
Okay.
some people might not be able to see it at all.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and do that. It said, "It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back. Only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. That there was some good in this world, and it's worth fighting for."
Now,
and that is Samwise Gamgee, Lord of the Rings, and that was also quoted word for word in the movie, and that is one of the best quotes in the movie as well as the book.
Well, this is what I want to ask to the people looking at it. Do you see anything wrong with this quote? This is my talent.
Oh. Okay.
With this quote.
I didn't. Hang on.
You won't find it in misspellings or anything like that. That's not the problem.
Oh, it's not misspellings. Okay.
I will. No. I will reveal the mystery. The mystery.
Okay.
What's wrong with it is it's a pastiche of different from different places in the Lord of the Rings, condensed into this particular text, but it doesn't come directly from the Lord of the Rings. If you search,
meaning that it's a compilation.
Yeah, if you search on
right, yes.
And I will read what
So
most of
you're
it's
saying
from.
because it's a
And the part where
compilation,
he said,
we have a particular viewpoint of what it means, and in context with where it actually lies in the stories, even though it's direct quotes, it has a completely different context and therefore could mean different things entirely.
the meaning, yeah, the meaning is altered a bit because of the way that they
Okay.
made a pastiche out of it. And
Okay. I mean,
what
I
I'm
like
saying
it
is
as
my
a.
talent
Okay, I
when I
didn't
see this
realize that
type
the
of stuff,
term was
I can immediately say,
pastiche. I'm sorry.
eh,
Hang on a
well,
sec.
that's
Um,
when you take a when you t- when you take a bunch of textual sources and put them together. That's a common term for it. It could be called something else too. It could be called just a combination, you know. But
okay.
the point is, this is what I bring to TE, in that I can see something like this and say, well, that's not a real token quote. It's a mixture, you know. And I will tell you where the real one it comes from. I'll read it because I got it up here in my Word document. It's a bit
In your notes. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
Oh, I see.
it's longer now. This is most of the original. Uh, and we shouldn't be here at all if we had known more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that. This is Sam speaking. I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old songs and tales, Mr. Frodo. Adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think were the things that the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull. A kind of sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folks seem to have just landed in them, usually. The paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back, only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. We we just hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least not to what folk inside a story and not outside of it call a good end. You know, coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mister Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they might be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of tale we've fallen into. And then Frodo speaks, I wonder, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take any one that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to. No, sir, of course not. Baron, now, he never thought that he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown of in Thangardrum,
Right.
and yet he did,
Mhm.
and that was a worse place and blacker danger than ours. And that's a long tale, of course, and it goes on past happiness and into grief and beyond it. And the Silmaril went on and came to Earendil. And why, sir, I never thought about that before. You've got some of that light of it still in that star glass that the lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's still going on. Don't the great tales never end? And then Frodo says, "No, they never end as tales, but the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later or sooner, because
Wow.
at the time he's speaking, they were right at the boundary of Mordor, but haven't quite entered it yet. And
I see.
Gollum has, from their point of view, has run off, so they don't know where he is.
Right.
They went to
Right.
sleep and he's gone. So,
Right.
um, and the other
Wow.
part of it, where he speaks about shadow is only a passing thing, that's later, where um, after he has rescued Frodo from the Tower of Cirith Ungol, and they almost get captured by the orcs, but don't. And Frodo is basically worn out, and he's sleeping, and Sam is also resting, and he's looking up, and the volcanic clouds, the the mountain of Mount Doom has ceased its eruptive cycle for a little while, and so some of the clouds are starting to to break apart, and he sees a star shine up above the
Right.
confines
Wasn't
of
that
Mordor.
Iluvatar?
Yeah, and he says that it doesn't really specify, but he Sam gets this feeling of peace, and that the shadow is
Yeah.
only a passing thing, and that's
Yeah.
where that quote comes from. So you see what I mean? It's a combination, and
Yeah.
this causes it causes me a little bit of irritation, because people put these things out and say this is a Tolkien quote. Well, it's a Tolkien mixture in that sense. It's a Tolkien quote,
It's
but
a combination.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so you're saying though that I mean I think that it's a good combination.
Oh, I don't have any
Um,
problem with it,
right.
other
But
than that.
the context is not. So the thing is that what you're saying is your job with as a legendarium expert is to, even if this is in good intention and maybe has a great message, it might not be the message that is of the legendarium
Right. Well, you see,
because it was taken out of context and then conglomerated together.
right. Well, you see, I'm sure that people who know nothing of the stories would have a somewhat different psychological and emotional reaction to hearing what you read versus the longer thing that I just read. So,
Yes.
you know,
Oh yeah.
they may
Oh
like it.
no, it totally could take you to a totally different
Yeah,
place. Absolutely.
they may prefer the shorter movie version, but I'm just that really doesn't matter. I'm just saying that different textual sources have different impacts, and
Yes.
that's important to recognize, you know.
Actually, I think that it is important to recognize. I knew that it wasn't like altogether like because I'd read the Lord of the Rings,
Mhm, mhm.
and I knew that it wasn't together, but I didn't understand like what you meant by what's wrong with it because I was like, well, I mean, meaning that like it
Mhm.
all comes together, like it's
Right,
not wrong,
right,
okay? But I can also see like that not knowing that it's a collection of quotes, which would be more appropriate, like that they say Tolkien, a collection of quotes from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
right,
That would
right,
be
right.
more
Yeah,
accurately
right.
reflecting
Mhm. Right.
what the actual condition was. And we have, it says, the quote from Sam is a good example of eucatastrophe, a word Tolkien coined that no matter how much bad happens, it will be okay in the end. Yes,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
But he also says, rather than the word that we were talking about earlier,
Mm.
he says Tolkien paraphrases, meaning that
Right. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's like pieces
That's
that
probably
are
a
that are
better
made
word.
like in a
Yeah.
certain that have a certain impact,
Right. Right.
but it's not necessarily the same impact. I'm not going to
Right.
say it's less powerful or less good
Mhm.
because I think that it's a really good combination, but I love the fact that you are like just about like honesty of like what the source material is about, meaning that it is a combination and the
Well, and
context that comes from the areas where they pulled it out so that people can have a deeper understanding of all the pieces that they pulled out.
yeah, and because I came at this by reading it versus through movies or something. um,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
I can when somebody says, "Oh, well, this is a Tolkien quote," I'll look at it and I'm like, "No, it's not. It's like several of them mushed together." And they get
Right.
a lot of people get pissed when I say that. But
Right. Right. Yeah, well, and the thing is that what makes me more crazy is the ones that are not Tolkien quotes, they're movie quotes.
yeah,
And
uh-huh.
they go, "Oh, that was Tolkien." And it's like, "No, actually that was the movies." And I know that, and I know
Right.
the difference with those.
Right, right. Oh,
You,
yeah.
you
Well,
know what I
some of the
mean?
I'm even
Yeah.
starting to see Amazon Rings of Prime quotes, saying that
Oh, what a
they're Tolkien quotes.
travesty. Oh my God. I am so disappointed because I really wanted that to be a good thing.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, now I do understand that they're not just picking on Tolkien, okay? Like, meaning everything is kind of running through this grinder that they're having
Hmm.
of
Right,
ruining everything that was ever
right.
good about any artist. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously,
Exactly.
they're
Yeah,
trying to, dumb down everything. So it's not like that they're just picking on Tolkien, but I guess I'm more affected because this body of mythology, okay, because to me it's a mythology,
right,
um is so important to me and my spiritual path. It hurts to
right, right.
watch. Okay, so it's one thing when the story is retold and it's mostly good, okay, and I'm like, okay, so they embellished on a couple of things and they left out a couple of really important parts, but overall, I think that the ambiance and the energy came through. Where in this particular thing that is happening, I am not getting any energy other than Bear McCreary's soundtrack.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, of genuine Tolkien, you know, like, it's like they have the scenery kind of, you know, interesting. And, you know, like some of the things, but like nothing. It's like they're not doing anything that is of Tolkien. It's just, I mean, the first 5 minutes, you know, I'm like, elves wouldn't do that. I mean, immediately I knew, you know. So yeah, I'm really very upset about, you know, like the fact that they're just doing this, just no justice at all, and that I'm concerned about, you know, an entire generation that like sits around and watches Amazon Prime all day long, and that like they're going to embody this and think that this is actually Tolkien and never read the book. Yeah. And no, I'm so like, oh my goodness, you know. I wish for all of them to read the books. Okay, like everybody that wants to, I want them to read the books. I want them so much to read the books. Just go read the books, right?
No, one thing that's privately humorous to me is, as you know, and probably unlike most people, when Peter Jackson's movies came out, I didn't think much of them, and that was because I had been introduced to the mythos through literature, and so no movie would really measure up. However, after this thing came out, I have to retrace my original assessment, and I'm like, you know, Peter Jackson actually didn't do such a bad job when you compare it to this thing. I mean,
I know.
Shit.
I know. Yeah, it's an abomination, and I'm so sad because it could have been so good. It could have been so good. I really wanted it to be good, and it's just not. And by the way, that is no, just for people on the record, it is not because of the actors or actresses. They're doing what their job is. Okay, so there is no like hard feelings towards that. I'm talking about the people who were doing the changing of the stories so much that it's not even Tolkien anymore. Okay, and they're portraying it as if it's Tolkien. That's what I'm talking about. I am not talking about race or anything, because there's a lot of controversy about that. No, that is not. I have no problem with African American roles playing like, we don't know like all the, you know, all the colors of every, you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that they just didn't portray Tolkien at all. That's what bothers me.
Not even close.
Not even close. And then Draco says, then you look further back to the Soviet version. Even that is better than the Rings of Power show.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I didn't even think of that, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Russian version, and you know, maybe we can talk a little bit about the Russian version. Wasn't that like kind of that they felt like that that Mordor was like based on them, and so it was kind of like a, you know, this is a story against us kind of. Wasn't that the one? Is that the one that you're talking about, Draco?
I think that was more in some of the printed propaganda, but
okay, because I heard about that there were some people that felt like that Tolkien had been racist against them, and therefore that they were identifying with the Mordor like people, you know, and saying we're the Mordor people, you know.
That's because of the various references to the East and the Easterlings and so forth. So
and this was literally an alternate like reality or whatever. Yeah, because otherwise we'd have physical evidence of like Tengwar and other things.
They had this pushback.
Different.
Well, the whole. That's a whole other show. The whole
Draco says no, that's not the same thing. Okay, I just was double checking on that.
Yeah. Okay. I know the one talking about, but
okay, so Dave knows the one that you're talking about, Ian, so that's okay. So it's the Hobbit live action, super low budget. Oh, that one. Oh, okay, I remember that one. Bilbo looked like a homeless guy. Yeah,
I only saw it once.
I super low budget. But even it was better than the Rings of Power. How terrible.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because at least they, still like aligned with Tolkien and what he was about. So.
Well, and that was a big thing in that era, is that it was kind of I don't know if it was an officially banned book, but it was frowned upon because it was, it was from the West, and we can't have those influences.
Oh, right.
So,
At the time.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't, it wasn't like, they weren't, as far as I know, they weren't like arrested and tortured for putting on Lord of the Rings plays and stuff like that. So it's not that type of thing. I mean, that'd be more like modern day Putin, because he's crazier than a shithouse rat. But nevertheless.
Oh my goodness.
But with his little, fake insurrection there, and then we're going to send the guy to Belarus so he's in the position I want him, and I know what's going on there. But, I'm not. That's a different topic.
Boy, this will be entertaining later when somebody's watching this, and then like some of the current news is filtering in here. Pretty funny. So, Dave, did we get through your document?
Yeah.
And
mostly.
If so, go ahead.
No, there's still more to go. One is
okay. No, we want to hear all of it, and
right.
And then I wanted to see if there was a Q&A, like if Draco, Christy, or Nimue had questions, or anybody else. And by the way, if you're watching the replay of this, feel free to throw questions in the comments, under this video, because we'll definitely have that open. Okay. Draco says, people in Russia love Tolkien, which makes the authorities nervous, but then everything does. In Soviet Russia, Tolkien reads you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay.
Let's see. I'm going back to my notes here just so I don't, because we.
Okay, sure. No worries.
We jumped around compared to where.
We totally jumped around. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I guess like I have ADD, right? So.
I'm through I'm through with the movie graphics, so you can either put the two of our pictures up, or you can put my picture back.
Okay, I put your picture back up again.
Okay. Let's see here. The other my worldview. Now, other people may share it. I don't know. So I know that some people in IV do. For the general viewers watching this, I have no idea. But
and for those that don't know what IV means, it means Ilsalunte Valion, which is Tia Eldalieva's sister group.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's at westofwest.org. Basically, that's the easiest way to remember it, and you'll see the forum link there and so forth. And anyway, my worldview of the whole Legendarium and how it impacts my life. I view it mytho-historically. I'm going to put a definition and paste it in here.
Oh, okay.
Because it's easier to basically.
Okay.
In here. Sometimes things look different when you paste them in versus.
Oh, right.
Okay, here we are.
Are you pasting it into the private chat, or are you pasting it into the messenger?
I'm pasting it into the private chat.
Okay, so. I'm there now. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. I'm grabbing it.
And watching this now, it's a Star Trek Next Generation episode called Darmok.
Oh.
But in there, it's the best explanation of a mytho-historical worldview in a sci-fi context that I've ever seen. So, if you really want to get I'm going to post a book reference a little bit later, but if you want to get a really good idea of what I mean by mytho-historical worldview and what does that mean, watch this video, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll see the context too, because the context is important.
Okay, I put that in the chat, and I wanted to tell you that Draco said that comment about in Soviet Russia Tolkien reads you says that was a joke. So
Right.
um, I guess I didn't like fully get
Yeah.
it, maybe because I'm not Russian. So sorry about that, Draco. I'm sorry I didn't catch the humor on
Yeah.
that. Dave might though, because
Yeah.
I believe that
Well,
you have some Russian
well,
ancestry.
Ukrainian, but yeah,
Oh,
some of the
oh, okay. I didn't real. I thought that it was Russian.
no, uh,
Interesting.
Ukrainian. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That
that's
that
and that reminds me of like Edward and the whole conversation with
that's
that.
on
Wow.
my
And then
mom's
he
side.
spoke Russian when he was a kid, and that was his first
Mhm.
language. And
Yeah,
he's Ukrainian and Latvian of all things. So that's
I'm like
so much fun.
I think I, I can't remember if I'm third or fourth generation, so I didn't retain the language, but
Oh,
I
I
did
see.
retain like a sort of a connection to that part of the earth, if you understand what I mean. So
Yeah. Okay. And I will find the link to the Amazon Rings of Power. We have 2 interviews that we did because we did one before the series was released,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then we did one at the end of the season, and that so
And this is
probably
a really
would it
good.
be the second one, because that was the one that we were
It
just
would.
like, okay,
It
we're over it, we're not
yeah.
watching this
It
anymore.
it was yeah. It was the latest one that we did. I think we did it like back in January, like early January or something like that. At least that's what the date on my
Okay.
file is. So
Draco says he's Russian, but his mother's family lived in Kharkiv,
mhm.
Ukraine.
Right,
They
right, okay,
considered themselves
yeah,
ethnically Russian, though. So,
right,
okay,
right.
I gotcha. Wow, so much similarity here.
Yeah. Anyway,
Crazy.
this video, the the Enterprise crew encounters this race of beings that speak in sections of mythology from their they have apparently a very extensive mythology, and the way that they speak is not to use nouns and verbs and things like that. They cite references from their mythohistorical accounts.
Oh,
Like
wow.
like Shaka when the walls fell means a failure. Something didn't work. The walls fell down. And Timba, his arms wide means please give me something. I need more information, or stuff like that. So and it's all in explained in context in this video, but it's a very good way of describing how somebody like me see I'm not internally a linguistic thinker. Being on the autism spectrum, I'm a visual thinker, and probably the person who is most famous for that is a lady named Temple Grandin, um, which I don't know if you want me to like look up the URL and post a wiki for her, but
May as
anyway,
well. I mean, I'm
yeah,
here. Go
okay.
ahead. If you have
Okay.
the link handy, I'll just go ahead and bring it over.
Anyway, being a visual thinker, I don't think in languages internally. So what I do is I basically, since the Legendarium became my personal mythos, oftentimes I'll think of concepts expressed in Legendarium terms, even if I'm thinking about something totally different. And that only really makes sense if you see this video. Otherwise, it'll sound like so much blubber blubber. But
Oh, goodness. Okay.
but let me see.
Okay. Now, do you want me to play the video in the context of the
No,
video?
no, no. It would
Okay,
take
this
you.
is for people like on their time. Okay.
Yeah, it would take you long. It's like a 40-minute episode. So
Oh, it's a 40-minute episode. Oh, yeah, that wouldn't work tonight.
it's the
I'm
it's the
sorry.
full it's the full episode. I secretly uploaded it to Vimeo without saying what it was, and if people on Vimeo, they're very
Oh,
lax about copyright.
I
So
see.
and
Okay.
and
And
plus
then
it's
you just don't mark it so people can't like find it. So there you
exactly,
go.
and also
Yeah.
it's in the original resolution from back in the day. So people would say, "Yeah, that's too low res for me. I'm not watching that shit," So
Oh,
but
okay.
it's not really low res. It's just what we all saw back in the 1980s. People
Oh,
watching the
right. Of course. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. I remember the 80s.
yeah.
Well, we had that
So
conversation recently.
yeah.
Okay.
And another way of explaining it, I have a verbal one that I made myself. I said, and this is from the IV Charter. That's Ilsalunte Valion's charter. To us, the Legendarium is a mythohistory. That is to say, a narrative in the historical chronological mode, but expressing events in mythological form. This worldview is often difficult for moderns who have been brought up to believe that a thing is either true or false to understand, but it was a common way of perceiving the world in ancient days. For a thorough explanation of this concept, I recommend the book Did the Greeks Believe in Their Myths? An essay in constitutive imagination, and I will post that thing in. And that's actually directly taken from the charter, which is not exactly visible now because we're redoing the whole thing. But anyway, this is a section of it.
Okay. And by the way, I forgot to drop the banner earlier that it was an interview with you. So I'm going to do that now.
Okay, cool.
I forgot. So let me go ahead and grab this link. Copy link
actually,
address.
It cut off the very last part of it, so I will redo the very last part of it here.
Oh, okay. Let me grab it.
Okay.
So
cut off the very last. So
right. Okay. Hang on a sec. And by the way, I can only do a little bit at a time as well. So
right.
I'm going to do it up to understand. So I'm going to do this in sections, you guys.
Right.
Copy.
And the very last one is the link to the book.
Paste.
It's hard to tell.
Oh my goodness. I even still didn't do it. So I've got to cut it up in even smaller pieces.
It's hard to tell beforehand where these things will chop it. You know, it's
yeah.
It's weird. But anyway, this historical worldview that's one of the things that in addition to the other stuff we've talked about, it's one of the things that makes our group a bit different. In that, you know, a lot of people come at Tolkien from a literary point of view, or they may come at it like Middle Earth pagans did, as a sprinkling of Gandalf and a little dash of Varda to spice up their pagan rituals or whatever. You know, that's not what we're doing. So
Galadriel and Legolas, I remember.
Yeah,
I mean, just kind of strange. Okay, I'm going to erase that.
And if I have my notes here, just my
okay, I'm having trouble figuring out what fits in YouTube for the comment, like in the live chat, because it's even smaller than what fits in the private chat. So hang on a second. I'm getting so I'm going to go back and I'm going to get, for a thorough explanation of this concept, I recommend a book, Did the Greeks Believe in Their Myths? An essay on the, and then it says C, and then it disappeared.
Yeah, I put one right below that where there's a continuous. I recommend the book, Did the Greeks Believe Their Myths? An essay on the concept of imagination.
Okay. Hang on a second. Let me redo this copying.
And then the link to the book is at the very end.
I'm just going to steal this then. Copy. Okay, let's switch back. Comments. Okay. Paste. And then go back to the private chat. And then copy this. And then copy. And then switch back to comments. Paste. Okay, oops, there's a space that's missing here. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the chat, and I hope it fits. It did. Okay, now I'm gonna go grab the link, and that will be the last part of that. I apologize, you guys. It's not intuitive how much of this will fit in a quote. From
this has happened a number
from
of
the private chat, and which is a long format
Yeah.
that does not fit into the YouTube format very well. Paste.
You would think that they would make them the same number of characters. One would think.
Okay, let me tell you why they don't. So StreamYard didn't build the back end of the private chat for being pasted into the comments, for one.
Hmm.
Number two,
Hmm.
they do multiple platforms, so it's not
Oh,
just
I see.
YouTube. They do
Okay.
LinkedIn, they do Twitter, they do Facebook Live, of which is a clusterfuck, by the way. They do
Right.
other stuff as well, and it's just not very smooth, for
Right.
everything.
Right.
So
Right.
but I did get everything that you put into the private chat.
Okay. Cool.
So,
Now, what this means from as my working MO when I'm doing TE or IV stuff. Basically, instead of viewing it as literature, it's a part of my personal thought process in a sense, but that may not make much sense to you if you haven't seen the little video yet. So another way I can express it was, instead of viewing it as as a literary work, you view it more akin to archaeology or paleontology or anthropology. So these are areas of study. So I can apply different filters to the same data and get different results out of it. And I don't think a lot of other people do that, or maybe they're not even capable of doing it. I'm not sure, but uh, anyway, I haven't. I've seen a few people, but the few instances of it I've seen are like very very rare, and oftentimes for whatever reason from longer ago. Like, there was this lady in the 1970s that came out with her version. She didn't call it Art of Timeline. That's my thing, because she didn't do
oh,
the
I see.
the
Hmm.
the stellar positions, but she
Oh,
postulated
that one.
where
Oh, yeah,
all this
yeah.
might fit
Okay.
into Earth's history. And that came that she came out with that thing in, like, I don't know,
Oh, a long
1974 or
time
something
ago.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was apparently severely reprimanded. She was in some college or other, and she was severely reprimanded because you cannot mix literature and not only
And
that, but not
science. Yeah.
yeah, but
Hmm.
not classic
Yeah.
literature. It's just pop culture literature. No, you can't do that. It's not done. You know, or so I read.
Mm.
She apparently got dissed severely for it, and therefore,
Well,
so there you go.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean the culture was really different back then, and especially also with women presenters as well.
right, right, yeah, yeah,
You know, like you're not allowed to do that, kind of thing. And I
right.
mean, you know, so yeah, very very interesting
And
about that.
I wasn't aware of hers until I started, searching for other issue, other characteristics of my own art of timeline. And then I just hit this thing, depending on, I don't remember what keywords I was using, but it hit in with regard to ancient Earth and the different geological ages. And all of a sudden this thing popped up. I'm like, what's this? And then I'm like, oh my god, from 1974.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so you are, in a sense, like you and possibly Draco are kind of doing a like deeper go at this Arda timeline
Yeah, yeah,
reconstruction.
yeah.
And
That's
if
that's
anybody
the
out
idea.
here is watching the video that is like, oh my God, I would love to do that, make sure that you get in contact with us, because boy, that would be
Yeah,
amazing if
it's a very
there would be
large
some other interested people in that. That would be awesome.
project, and everybody who has different knowledge can contribute it to it in their own, given their own
Yes.
speciality. So yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that would be really awesome. I don't have skill in that, unfortunately. But that, I mean, I'm busy enough. I run like all of the administrative stuff at the organization, and I haven't had time for that lately. And I'm trying to get back on track, but I'm also wanting to be transparent with all of you, where we are doing a lot administratively behind the scenes to reform the organization so that it has a clean bill of health.
Right.
Because right now there's some places, and we're healed, but it's kind of like being crippled. We want to just start over.
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
just energetically we want to start over and clear out like icky stuff. And in the process of going through all of this, we actually learned the reality versus the projection of what was going on back then. So we actually have real figures that we can show the IRS and let them know like what's going on. And so I'll be kind of starting those conversations as soon as I get my personal life together. Okay, I'm still like all over the place trying to earn money, trying to do all of these things, and I live in LA, and it's been good, but it's been challenging to keep my focus on getting some stuff done. And then once the focus fills like with what it is that it's happening, I can then devote time toward this. And I have a feeling that when I am in Sedona this summer, I will have a little bit of time towards some of this.
Right. And now we're
So
almost to the end. So let's
okay,
see.
excellent.
What have I got here? Let's see. Okay, already did that. Oh yeah. And this is kind of following on about, like you said, about the lady who presented that paper. And especially at that time, women were looked down upon. What are you doing with that crap?
Yeah, yeah,
Now, as people have asked me, not a lot, but the people who have gotten to know me have sometimes asked me in the past in different situations, well, you know about science, you know about mathematics. Why didn't you go into science, or why didn't you go become a Tolkien scholar, yo? Okay, and there's a very simple reason for that. Because I am a Gen Xer, and with a Riddick sort of personality, I can't do the ass kissing.
yes, I can't either.
And with both academia and Tolkien scholarship, there's a lot of ass kissing involved to rise up to the
Yes.
top. And there's no way.
Academia and the Tolkien scholarly, linguistic, everything, and corporate America, probably corporate everything. It just, I can't do it. The dishonesty and all of the things. I'm like Gen X too, and I don't care what they say. I'm a Gen X because astrologically I'm a Gen X. I believe Gen X started in 1962 when Pluto and Uranus got to Virgo, and it was in those signs all the way till 1972. And
I can imagine, because
and by the way, it is ticked up in 1965, 1966, and 1967. Just so that you know.
just because you were born in 64, you are not a baby boomer. I don't give a fuck.
I am not a boomer at all. I mean, even remotely having that viewpoint. And of course, I have so much Aquarius. Oh my God. I just can't do it. I literally, I look at something, and if it's not truthful, I have a moon in Leo too. It doesn't help. And Jupiter in Aries. So, I have authority issues, and part of it is because I have such a good, strong authority, inner authority of me, that I don't need an outer authority unless they have expertise that I believe that they've earned, and that's different. And I will listen to people that have a clue. But just because somebody has a title doesn't mean crap to me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And let's see. Oh, Draco says I'm also a Gen Xer. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I agree with that. I know that like by 19, like in the like. That it seems like you're a millennial, but I would say that you're like, and by the way, like on the light spectrum of like, the light workers coming in, and, there was a lot of books done about that. And they were talking about like the early wave indigos started coming in around 1946, 47. Oh, wow. That's when Roswell happened. Anyway, they also were talking about like the big wave of indigo came in the mid 60s. And then they had the crystal children come in during the millennial era. So then there was some early wave millennial, kind of stuff like, before, like in late Gen X, if you will, of crystal kids. Okay, my son is an indigo. I can tell because like he, it's just it's an energy. It's like something that you just know. And what it is that the indigos have a lot of anger about, like, because they see the truth, and they cannot deal with the fact that people just lie so much, and they get punished for opening their mouth and saying, hey, you're lying. you know um and Nimue is a millennial. Okay, so, and is Nimue a crystal child on the spectrum? Like, is she like just like everybody's happy, let's all get along? Is it like that, or is it like, no, motherfuckers, you're doing this wrong, and like just having all the uprising? You know what I mean? Like that indigo energy. I definitely, you know, definitely like threw that in some faces when I was in corporate culture and said, I am not going to do this. This is a lie. you know, Crystal child. Yeah. 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 My daughter is one of the crystal kids. So sweet. By the way, she's not a pushover because, I taught her, like, don't be a pushover to the wrong people. But, she is just so light and wonderful, where my son is always, he's got his thinking hat on. He's like looking for like where somebody's trying to screw somebody over. You know what I mean? So even my son is like, he's a millennial, but he is an indigo for sure. He's an indigo. So Dave, you and I are like indigos basically too, because we call out the bullshit.
If you say so. I don't really know what that means, but
I know, but I'm just saying it's a vibrational thing, and
right.
I totally see
Right.
that you are a truth seer and you don't take any bullshit.
No, I do not take bullshit. Yes, and
That's where I'm going.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
thus, you are an
yeah,
indigo.
yeah. Anyway,
So that's on the light spectrum thing. As far as generations and some of that, like, that's
right.
a different measurement system. And yeah, so, but yeah, I'm definitely indigo. My son is an indigo. But my daughter is definitely a crystal kid because she's so, like, I mean, she was such a happy baby, like all of the stuff, and the world awakening, the rude awakening of the world has really, I mean, it had to shape her. And like that, it's like, not everybody is, rainbows and unicorns and shit,
Right.
and
Right.
she had to learn that. She's better at it. Okay. But she still has a very playful side. She's very loving. She's very light. She's very fun to be around. My son can be fun, but in a completely different way. It's very serious, but his humor is sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not paying attention, like, you'll miss it.
Right.
That's just what happens. So.
Okay. The very last thing are basically two links, and I've set this up slightly. What this is about is there's I've noticed. I don't know if a lot of other people have noticed this or not, although some of the links show that some people have. There
Okay.
in some in some in some sci-fi series, particularly Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica, they do have some themes in common with the Legendarium. With the Battlestar Galactica, it's more the concept of eternal return. You know how
Yeah.
all this has
That
happened before,
Battlestar
and all this will
Galactica
happen.
was so good. Oh my god.
Yeah, and with Babylon 5, there are actually more things in common. Probably less number of people have seen Babylon 5. It happened to be one of my favorite shows. It just came out right at the right time, during the 90s, and I really glommed onto it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to post the basically the two links here. One is to just to the Battlestar Galactica one is just to the Eternal Return wiki, but the Babylon 5 one goes to basically kind of a half blog and half I don't know what you want to call it. It's a thing that doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of like
Oh.
an informational page that this person set up on all the various correspondences between Tolkien's works and Babylon 5. So I'm just gonna put that in there.
Oh wow.
Again, I don't know
Okay.
if that will interest anybody but me, but there. But
Well, it makes your
this
interview
particular episode about
complete,
me.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and after this, after you paste those, then we can open it up for questions if anybody has a question they want to ask.
Okay, let's
I'm
see
right
if
here to
this
answer.
works. Oh man, okay, I got to do the second link again.
Okay.
Hang on.
Okay.
Sorry guys, the second link didn't work, so I'm reposting it. Okay. Okay.
All right.
So I posted both of them.
Okay.
And oh, it looks like we have a comment that says, in the Lost Tales, Morgoth's creatures were robotic in nature. Absolutely.
They were,
yes.
Yeah. Who was it that made that comment?
Draco.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, we've actually discussed
Totally. And I mean, there's a whole theme with Tolkien with machines versus nature. And
right.
I mean, it's pretty evident, like, to me.
So, if anybody has any questions, I'm available to answer them.
Yeah, so I can do so. Oh, would you guys? Okay, because we don't have like really a full house, but if you guys want to come on, and maybe not Draco because he does better with typing. But so if there's anybody else that's viewing out there, and if you want to like pop into the video and ask Dave a question orally,
sure,
in the video, fine. I will give you guys a StreamYard link to do that. And Draco and Nimue said, "Where did you grow up?"
Oh, well, a lot of different places because my dad worked for Douglas Aircraft Company. They were aircraft manufacturer. They've now been consumed by Boeing.
Yeah, that they traveled a lot.
I was born in Washington and then moved to California when I was 3, and I lived there till I was 6, and then lived most of my childhood in northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois
itself. It was basically not. It was he worked in Chicago, but we didn't live in Chicago. We lived.
But you guys were in a suburb, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, in a town called Crystal Lake, like the famous town from.
Oh, how interesting!
The slasher movies, or what is it? Halloween, yes, with Crystal Lake.
Wow. Yeah.
But that was its real name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Huh. Wow. So, so mostly in Chicago, and then by the time that that I met you, because you were in, I want to say Ohio.
Yeah,
when I first met you, and then you went to Tennessee, and now you're in Georgia.
Yeah, what happened in between is
Costa Rica,
basically
for one.
Turned 16 in Illinois, then moved to Costa Rica, then moved to Oregon, and then I just don't do well on the West Coast. There's something about. As my shamanic abilities I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I recognize it's like some sort of discordance with the land spirits is what it feels like to me. And whenever I get west of the Mississippi River, it doesn't make a difference if it's a short time or a long time. Of course, the longer you stay there, the worse it gets. But
well, do you think that it might have to do with your Choctaw heritage, which is an Eastern-based tribal? Where you have like more connections with the land. I've
actually thought that, yes.
I was wondering if that was the reason.
But yeah,
ask your Salvia people; they might know.
Right.
Like the next time that you talk to your Salvia people, I bet that they know the reason. Yeah. Well, say, hey, how come I do better on the East Coast than the West Coast?
He just said yes. You're right. So
Oh my God! So I nailed it.
Yeah, the one thing about being that people may not know about being an entheogenic shaman is you don't have to do the entheogen 24/7. After a while,
no. After so the pathways are open, you have like a telephone system. Sure.
Yeah, basically.
I can definitely understand that. So they verified that. So that was my suspicion, and I never got to tell you. So that's pretty cool that we got it on video and for everybody else. That's really
Right.
cool.
Right.
Awesome. So you're from all over the place, but mostly from the Chicago area-ish.
That's where. Yeah. That's where
Yeah.
the core of my childhood is spent. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. 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 Okay. And it says that the East Coast and the mountains of the Celtic Islands were once together in the days of Pangaea. So
They
at
were.
one, that
Yeah.
it was one land. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I might not have read that
Yeah.
correctly, but yes, they were the same land. And also, I just know this from when I studied geology and geography when I was a kid. That they actually said that the mountains in the Appalachian Mountains were absolutely so much older than the Rocky Mountains and some of the mountains in the West. Okay, and
Yeah.
even though those are more jagged and more whatever, they are young mountains versus the worn down, and the Appalachians were at one point like probably even more giant
They
than
were.
the Rocky Mountains. Yeah.
Oh, they were higher than they were higher than the Himalayas are now.
They were higher than the Himalayas. Yeah, and they're just worn down. Yeah.
Now that was 300 million years ago, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, it shows you what time can do.
Right. And then there's a comment here from Draco Nimue that say, so that the land spirits have some similarities like the stories of the little people. Interesting.
Right.
Okay, so like meaning because of the land being together, once it split, there was still some resonance between. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So, any other questions for Dave? I mean, boy, you got him on the hot seat tonight. Like, go for it. And by the way, if you're catching the replay of this, feel free to put in the comments.
Yeah, you can type it.
And Dave will answer your question. It won't be like in another video unless it requires that. But, he'll be happy to type the response. So, okay, I haven't seen anything come up. Oh, wait. Okay, so this is a further point. It says, like the difference between the Calaquendi and the Moriquendi. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Separated by an ocean. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So Dave, I've had a bunch of fun with you tonight, because in a way, I feel like we shared about, I don't know, 20% of what we talk about on the phone and
right, yeah, just
about. And on our Google Meet, where we're just catching up and throwing around the bullshit and whatever, and just laughing because the world is so freaking ridiculous right now.
Right.
And and we shared a lot of I don't know, energetics, viewpoints, lots of different things that I think that will help people really get to know you and how you approach things, and therefore how you approach this path and how how the path actually kind of unfolds because of your direction. And the reason for that is because of your purity of influence.
Right.
It's awesome and totally awesome. Oh, and he says, thank you, Dave, for sharing about yourself and your story. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So I guess that means that they're not going to ask any more questions, at least right now. So we'll and boy, we're going on 2 hours and 42 minutes. So maybe we should end the live stream,
Closing in on 3 hours. Wow.
Yeah, that we're closing in on 3 hours. Hey, it's almost like one of our conversations when we're not monitoring.
Basically, yeah.
I know. But we've had a lot of sharing tonight, and yeah. I mean, I will say that was a good maybe 20% of a share that when we talk about stuff, That was, in fact, maybe, you know what, I'll ask the pendulum. How much did we share, for the, it says about 20%.
Right.
So when Dave and I talk, we go into an alternate dimension almost. We have so much, brain stuff that we gotta, like that we're sorting, and then we laugh because it's freaking humorous and all
even
of the
Richard
stuff.
Parker makes his appearance sometimes.
And Richard Parker makes his debut
and he
all the
talks
time.
in this kind of voice. Yeah.
And then the Salvia people go, "Hey, Lisa, by the way," it's really cool. It's like, you know, it's like kind of like when Dave gets a hold of you, it's like a party. Like it's, you know, it's like a, you know, like a spiritual party, like in a pack, you know. It's kind of cool. It says Dave is a Numenorian tiger. Awesome. Yes. Is there tigers in Numenor? I don't remember.
I don't think so. Well,
I know. I don't think so either. But I mean, that would be kind of fun. Now we have to look. Right?
there's actually one mention of what's her name, the elven lady fighting like a tigress, and that's the only. And Ian found it actually, and that's
wow.
But there's no
very cool.
It's in there, but there's no other information. You know, however, there is lions are mentioned in the linguistic sources, and I assume that meant like Asiatic lions. So you know. So.
Right. I was thinking that too. Yeah. Wow. Oh man, like we're wrapping up, so we're on you know, like 2 3/4 hours. So we're gonna let people like get going here. And so have a wonderful evening, everyone. And I hope that for people that are catching the replay that you guys, you know, type your questions in the comments, okay? Because Dave will answer them. And so I know that this is an unlisted video, so it's not really searchable. We wanted to cut down some of the riffraff, you know, like from just crazy people, but if you want to share this link with other people that you feel like might be interested, like you're allowed to share it. I just wanted to let you know. We almost decided to make this a public video, and then I dialed it back and said, no, we don't want to expose it to the wrong people, you know.
Yeah, you know, with crazy.
I know. You know. So, Namadi, Laita, many blessings to all of you who decided to attend Dave's interview tonight. And if you want me to be interviewed, or Draco to be interviewed, or Dekendre to be interviewed, or maybe even Luthien to be interviewed,
well, we do have that.
Let us know.
We do have that Luthien one that we talked about, and I'm just getting with her to schedule it.
Yeah, we'll make sure that she gets in a much better space. I want her to be like much more relaxed. So yeah. So Namaste, you guys. Take care. I'm going to end the broadcast now. Bye.
Bye.